Welcome back, everyone, to the latest installment here on Black Earth Productions. My name is Sethikus Boza, and today I have a segment that I have been anticipating for quite a while now, which is with Mark Passio from What on Earth is Happening. How's it going, Mark?
Sethikus, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Now, we've been in correspondence for the last few years. I met you at Free Your Mind 5 when you had the show with your bands.
Right.
Things have been developing since then, and it's been pretty powerful what's been happening on my end in context to people that actually want to get into the occult for real. But there are some things that I want to touch upon with you and really solidify so that people know what's going on in context, okay? And one of the main things that I see happening still in the occult community, you take it up to the higher levels, and it's still happening with people in context to the right wing and the left wing brotherhoods, pretty much all across the board, caught in this paradigm. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is exposing the dark priesthood, man. Exposing this really for what the fuck it is and the game that's going on, because you've had your experience with them. I had my experience. And have literally seen the seat of the dark Luciferians. Some of the most powerful sorcerers out there hypnotizing people.
Sure. They control all worldly religions for certain. They are behind the scenes of power in religion as much as they are behind the scenes of power in government. And this is what religionists fail to understand. What I find is going on, Sethikus, is everybody forms their own little hovels, their own little groupings, and they believe that their worldview is perfectly safe and sanitized and uncorrupted. And it's like, well, I have my little belief and worldview and system that I adhere to, and it's untouched by this corruption, and they're not controlling it behind the scenes. In other words, everybody else's religion is what is damaged, but my religion is perfectly fine, and it reflects the truth, and it's uncorrupted. And it's like I see this in the alleged freedom community as much as I do in political groups, like radical political groups. I see this as much in the freedom and anarchist community as you do in the religious community. No one seems to be insulated from this mind control effect of, I'm going to have my religion, and it's unadulterated and uncorrupted and untouched by this influence, but everybody else's is wrong. And it all comes down to one overarching thing, is that they do not understand how this interconnected cabal, this network of sorcerers, if you will, because for lack of a better term, that is what they are. They are employing the art and science of being able to manipulate and influence the way an entire society thinks and sees all sorts of issues. And they do that with ancient psychology. See, when I have discussions with people in, let's say, the anarchist community, or just maybe a concerned citizens group that meets in the city as part of a meetup group, okay, and I attempt to explain to them, you have not looked far enough into what is really taking place in the whole power structure. You have your view of it, you have your perspective of it, your take on it, based on the amount of knowledge and the perspective that you have thus far been able to see. But just because you've only been able to see that much through your research and study does not mean that it is not a much larger picture. It is not a much larger study to make. Okay, and I often find that what everybody wants to do is leave it at their perception, not walk through the door into further realms of knowledge, because they're comfortable with their perceptual aspect of it. They're comfortable with, well, I've understood up to this point, and that's what where I'm comfortable going. It's like starting to make a hike or climb up a mountain, or a hill, and you're saying, well, this is this far and no further, and I'm going to set up my tent and camp here, and I'm not going any further down the path or any higher up the mountain. And that's all fear driven consciousness. In one form or another, these people are still in a pure consciousness of fear, and they're in a consciousness of disempowered thinking, because they think if they acknowledge that this is something much larger and much more sinister than what they think that it is, where their current mindset allows them to accept that is going on in the power structure, that means we won't be able to do anything about it. It's too big, it's too powerful, okay? But this is the exact kind of defeatist thinking that is not going to get us anywhere. We have to acknowledge just how bad the situation is. This is part of being able to develop an acceptable solution to any given problem. First and foremost involves the confrontation of the reality of the problem. This is the first overarching natural law principle. Everything is mind. The universe is mental. If you don't get down to the understanding of this at a mental level, you are never going to be able to affect the solution in the domain of physical worldly manifestation, because the domain of physical worldly manifestation inevitably follows what comes in the mind. And herein lies the ultimate problem in all of these groups of people that I'm talking about, in all of these persuasions and all of these factions, if you will, all trying to look at their different perspective and pieces of the puzzle and see it from their little slice and sliver of reality and perception. There's one overarching commonality: overwhelming ignorance, not enough knowledge. Take in. They haven't taken in enough knowledge to form an accurate understanding and an accurate worldview of what is really taking place. They have not done that homework, certainly not to any extent effectively enough and on a wide enough scale. And I hear it over and over again. Throughout the conversation today, Sethikus, I would love to tell you just some anecdotes. I just want to tell you the kind of dynamics that I always run into, because I'm a very acute observer of where people's mindset is at. So, when I'm out in public, I'm usually in a pretty calm, relaxed demeanor, and people take it often as, well, he's not really interested or paying attention to what's going on with this person or that person. But I take it all in. I observe things quietly and just see where people are at. Okay, I don't need to, try to make any kind of a big deal of it, because I see what I see. I perceive it accurately, and I look at where people's mindset is at. This is what I do every time I go into any kind of a public space, is just go into observation mode and listen, hear what they're saying, hear what the people are saying, and then recognize where the total inadequacies and deficiencies of their knowledge base is at. And I'm very unfortunately never disappointed about regarding the level of ignorance that always comes back. It's shocking to me. It's saddening when I recognize how much knowledge has been placed out into the world for the consideration and consumption of the average human being. And then when I go out into public or into any kind of a group dynamic with other people, and I talk with them and gauge what they know, I recognize the ignorance is so overarchingly colossal that we have made as a species, in my estimation, such little progress when it comes to real knowledge, when it comes to deep knowledge and understanding, especially knowledge of fundamental philosophical principles, fundamental axioms of philosophy that have to be understood and built upon in order to build anything that's really going to serve what we say we want for ourselves as a species. Okay, and the colossal ignorance regarding the real power structure behind the scene, and the clinging, the desperate clinging to the dead corpses that are the existing institutions and existing religious thought systems and dead science as well. I could get into all of this, but what I see is this absolute clinging for dear life to a dead corpse. And that dead corpse is all of the institutions and thought forms and absolutely nonsensical ideologies that people have stayed firmly and rigidly entrenched to because of their calcified egos. They will not relinquish the stranglehold that they have on these dead corpse ideologies.
Right.
That absolutely do not do anything to progress for one instance or in any way whatsoever what they say they want for themselves. And I'll just give you, I want to give you a brief example, because this really leads to the understanding of how people don't understand how this cabal of ancient sorcerers who employ mind control. This is all about mind control and steering whole civilizations in one direction, that they can take almost so complete control of the mental processes of an entire people and steer them in one direction that they want them to go. That's how powerful they are, and that's how powerful their influence is. And yet, you don't have people even talking about this social engineering dynamic.
Right.
Most people won't even bring up the term, let alone bring up the term mind control, let alone bring up the term sorcery. Okay? This is one of the overarching examples of colossal ignorance that I'm talking about. People still don't even understand what the occult is. They don't even understand that it's ancient shadow psychology. If we want to really talk about what real occultism is, it is delving deep down into the human subconscious mind to understand the hidden motivations and the hidden psychological framework of almost all human beings, where our traumas are at, where our true motivations lie. Okay, you know, how we actually really see ourselves and the reality that we inhabit. Most people are loath to do this work. They don't want any part of any kind of introspective work like that. They're always looking to the external, to the external, to the external. So when I meet up in groups, especially in groups of people who say they're tired of the government control and want less government and more freedom. So I meet with, like, you know, groups of people who claim to be of a libertarian mindset, you know, not libertarian party, but libertarian meaning just a freedom-oriented mindset, libertarian with a lowercase.
Right, but the minute you mention the fact that we are up against elite bloodline sorcerers going back for eons,
right,
they think it's some kind of fantasy fucking bullshit.
They shut down. They will not even really continue to even really pay attention within the conversation.
Why do you think that happens, though? Where is that
Because
going
their
on within the psyche where they're rejecting that this shit's fucking real?
Or even the possibility that social engineers and psychologists could have hoarded their knowledge regarding the human psyche and the operational laws of nature, for that matter, real science, in other words. They reject the possibility that powerful individuals could have possibly come together and hidden important information in the form of deep-seated psychological knowledge and deep-seated knowledge of how the real operational laws of nature truly work to bring us the result of what we experience as our everyday reality. And they don't even acknowledge that as a possibility, and that is because they, as a whole, these people are psychological infants who have not done 1 minute of introspective personal developmental work upon themselves. They, again, want someone else to do the cleanup work. They just want to talk about how can we rearrange all this furniture in the room, but ultimately it's still all the same furniture in the room. Okay? You haven't really made any changes to the underlying infrastructure of the house. You're just rearranging items in the room. And that means the conditions aren't really changing. Okay, you're doing the same thing over and over again in slightly different ways, and you're just maybe, you know, looking at it from a different perspective and saying, oh, well, this has changed, so therefore it must be a little bit better. No, it's another form of the same control. It's another form of the same ignorance. Okay, but they're not making any real progress. Okay, look, I've been in this game now for over 15 years. okay? Really trying to combat the loss of freedom in our world. 15 years of my life, and really, well over 20, really having an accurate understanding of what's really taking place and going on, okay? And in the last decade, I've been very aggressively publicly speaking and putting information out to other people based on what I've come to understand really in the last 10 before that. Okay, so 20 years I've been basically doing this, getting my house in order to do this work. Okay, 15 years I've really been actively working on it, and 10 it's been very aggressive with interaction with becoming a public figure. Go ahead.
I remember when you first came out, okay, and I was on the same track back to 2006, 2007, when I really started to see what's going on. And I had a band at the time. We both been into the music scene. And I was putting a lot of these concepts in lyrics, trying to inform people, going to shows, talking to people about government and all that stuff. All of that lower tier first veil shit that people still haven't pierced that, man.
Not at all.
And they're caught in that paradigm, okay? The mental projection of what we're talking about here is something they can't see happening within themselves. And
that's right.
Given over to this paradigm that's keeping people divided and conquered.
Sure, because it's much easier to see it as just, well, there's two political parties, or we have to get rid of the banking system, or, cultural religion is the main problem, and we have to turn over to atheism. There's all of these dialectics in place, these either or, choose one hand or the other, but both of them are going to hit your jaw and knock you unconscious. Okay, but people will make those simple dialectical choices because what is the alternative? Well, the alternative is doing real spiritual work upon yourself such that you change the framework of your underlying thoughts and even your subconscious behavioral patterns such that you're not going to be manipulated or influenced by these false dichotomies, by these false dialectical choices. But people would basically, because they're so psychologically immature and they're like psychological infants, you give them the choice. Do you want to take one of these little simple choices over here that proposes a reductionist worldview and an oversimplified worldview? But we'll give you the illusion that you're making that choice for yourself, okay? And you're a big boy and you can choose between these things, okay?
But it's not a choice that actually came from the true core essence of the individual.
That's right. They never even considered the alternative possibility.
They're not even teaching individuals how to make connection to that.
Nobody even learns
to use the brain, the left and right hemispheres of the brain, correctly in alignment with the true core essence.
That's right.
And this is a lot of what I actually do teach with my students, man. And so I've been taking time the last couple of years to literally build a university, so to speak, where people can come and get a hold of the viable, proper knowledge necessary to be able to do what you're saying to do. And it is work. It's alchemy, it's burning, it's pain. And see, this is all the stuff that I find most people, they just tuck their tail and run.
I show people what I do on a daily basis, and most of them go, holy shit, man, I can't believe you're not 100% out of your mind doing this every day for the past 10 years. They're like, I would want no part of this, and most of it is unrewarded work. It's not like I'm, any kind of a rich human being monetarily living in any kind of super comfortable conditions. You hear how noisy my street is. I live in the middle of the city in the urban jungle. Okay. Construction going on. Sorry about the background noise.
I actually can't hear it, so it's fine.
Okay, well, there's construction crews out working on the street on water pipes or gas pipes or whatever, in the middle of the colossal throngs of ignorant masses, who have never even considered any of these ideas for one moment in the course of their natural lives and probably will die in that condition. Okay, to do this work, it has to be a labor of love of truth, because it's not a labor of love for human beings. Okay, I make no illusions regarding that. And I tell people honestly, I don't do this for human beings. Quite frankly, I don't like human beings in the condition that they are in and continue to dwell in enough to want to do this for them. I don't do this for people. I do this because it's the right thing to do. I am not serving people, I'm serving the truth. That's what my purpose in life is. I've discovered my mission and I'm on point with it. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. Whether people accept what you and I are saying about how they have to change themselves to really get out of the mind control dynamic that's going on in the world and help take back their true natural rights and inherent rights to be free individuals, to be sovereign individuals on this planet, whether they do that or not is their work to do, that they are going to either fulfill or not fulfill. Okay, and they're going to be held to account for that, as everyone is. We're going to ask ourselves. We're not going to be asked. We're going to ask ourselves when we leave this particular incarnation of reality in the flesh, in the flesh suit. When we leave this flesh suit, okay, as we all will one day, we're going to ask ourselves, what did I truly do to change the dynamic in the place that I just came from to make it from the place that it was when I was dropped in there, okay, until I left a better place?
Right.
And you know what most people will have to answer to that? A big fat goose egg, right. An absolute nothing burger. Okay, that's what they're going to answer to themselves regarding that. And it's not going to be like a punishment thing. It's going to be more of you're going to have to live with that and go on and move forward with that level of disappointment in yourself when you know you had the opportunity to do the right thing, and yet out of fear you chose to just try to remain as comfortable as possible. And that's where most people are at. The vast majority of the world is in that psychological space. And there's all kinds of justifications and excuses for it. Endless. There's an endless list. Okay? But, to go back to this dynamic regarding where the majority of people are all clutching onto their religious worldviews and beliefs that don't serve who they are, I just want to give you maybe one or two brief anecdotes. I'll start with one where I'm at what you might call concerned citizens group meeting, free thinkers and freedom-oriented individuals. Not going to name, anybody in particular, but I start talking to someone in the group at the table, over a drink, and I start getting into, well, we have to really understand consciousness. We have to understand, how human consciousness works and how it can be actually manipulated into different states, and that there isn't a single human nature as a lot of people insist that there is. Some people will say human nature is bad, and human nature is just it's a dog eat dog world, and so others will say no, human nature is unadulterated and it's actually good under the surface. Okay, and what they don't understand is that's like saying the nature of sculpting clay is that it is good or evil. You've been using this example. Okay, well, take a look at that sculpting clay over there. Okay, that potter's clay, right? Is that good or is that evil? It's like it's a babyfied, nonsensical question that it doesn't even make sense. Because why would you see sculpting clay as good or evil? It is something that is capable of being molded and fashioned into a particular form or condition. And that's what real human nature is. It's that it's neither good nor bad when we just, have a human being there, but it's what a human being can be molded or conditioned into based on the information that gets input into them, whether by someone else externally outside of themselves that they then accept and take into their psychological framework and makeup, or whether they're informing themselves and they're taking in knowledge and putting that into their internal makeup and then transforming their psychology with that work. Where most people are at, though, is they have walled off almost the whole body of information that they really need to deeply study and look into. They have firewalled it off. It's like a firewall on a local area network. And it's saying you are not getting into this section of knowledge because it is off limits for your consumption. It is absolutely not allowed. We're putting that under lock and key and throwing away the key because there is nothing to see there. And even if there was, you're not privy to it. You don't have access. Okay, and this is what people are doing to themselves in their own minds. When I said this is about consciousness and understanding who we really are as spiritual beings, okay, the person looks me dead in the eyes and he goes, "These are meaningless terms to me." I said, "What are meaningless terms to you?"
Wow.
He said, "Consciousness and spiritual." And I'm like, "You're a freedom advocate? You are a freedom-oriented thinker. You think you're a freedom-oriented thinker." Yes, I am. I'm a member of the Libertarian Party, and I believe in less government, and I believe in more individual freedom. And I said, and you just looked me dead in the face, right in the eyes, and you said to me, consciousness is a meaningless term, and spirit is a meaningless term. That's meaningless terminology. Yes, I'm a scientific materialist and an atheist. And I said,
Right.
we're done. We're done. We're done. There's no learning or communication or conversation is going to be happening here. And now some people will look at that and say, oh, that's religious thinking. No, 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 no. It's not religious thinking on my part when I say that consciousness and an understanding of our spiritual essence is what is required to get out of the mess that we've wedged ourselves into in the current human condition. Okay? That's not religious thinking on my part. It is religious thinking on this individual's part to look someone dead in the eyes who is trying to who has been doing the work of trying to explain to people what the underlying causal factors of the loss of human freedom are for the better part of the last 15 years, okay? And look them dead in the eyes and say, this has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with human consciousness and spirituality. That, my friends, is religious thinking. This person is a entrenched, viciously grasping onto religious thought and doesn't even know he's a religionist. He doesn't even know that what he's putting forward in his mind is 100% pure religion in the brain and can't even grasp that notion. This is a person who is actively under mind control and believes fervently that they are not under mind control, that they have escaped the matrix of mind and the matrix of thought steering that the social engineers want them to be. And I just look at a person like that, and it's like the absolute irony, the irony and dichotomy of a person who believes they're going to affect the world for the better regarding freedom, and they don't know the very first tiny little speck, the most minuscule iota of information that they need to understand any part of the causal factors that have led to this condition.
Right.
That is a person flailing wildly in the dark, flailing in the dark with no understanding of how to ever lead themselves out of a condition of mental slavery and religion into a condition of true spiritual and mental and then physical freedom. See, that's the flow that it has to happen in. You have to get freed up spiritually ultimately before you can get freed up mentally. If you don't free the spirit of yourself and get into the spirit of truth, okay, this is internal work. This is internal emotional alchemy. that most people never do, to come in touch with who are you? What is really going on deeply down inside within you, to do that shadow work. This is a person who has never even done any of that type of transpersonal psychological work, not for a second. To say you're a scientific materialist means you deny the existence of those realms of being. He's not. There's no search for anything there, because he believes there is nothing there to search for or to discover or to work with. That's like saying, well, here's the hunt for the gold, but there's actually no gold to be found. I believe there's no gold to be found in the room that we're going to do the hunt in. You know, when you start with that premise, you're done before you start. You have lost before you even have begun. And this is why in the ancient world, as you know, and many people who study the occult know, in every single mystery school throughout the history of humanity, upon learning that the person who was attempting to receive the knowledge that was held by the wider community of people within the tradition or the school, their worldview was there's no spirit, you know, consciousness is meaningless. They were not taught. They were said, no, you're unteachable, and you're in too much of a religiously controlled mindset. Okay? Your thoughts are not even flowing enough to accept that there are laws and powers that are far beyond you, that you don't control or have any say in. That there are natural, physical, cosmic, and behavioral laws in effect in creation. It doesn't make a difference whether you accept them, believe in them, or even know how they work. They have an effect in your life. That's what a higher power is. A higher power is a condition that human beings did not put into effect and are not capable of changing or taking out of effect. That's the definition. You don't need to believe that it is some godly intelligence, okay? Although, if some entity that is beyond our understanding and comprehension, or force or intelligence, didn't put that into effect, then what did? If you want to say nature, then you have to accept that that intelligence is built into the fabric of nature. So I'm okay with calling it the universe, with calling it nature, or with calling it God. Okay, that word doesn't make me personally uncomfortable, because I understand the context in which I'm saying it. And it is not a religious context, it is simply a spiritual and universal construct. Right. You know, meaning the creator that laid those laws into effect. And it had to be organized, and it had to be intelligent, and it had to have a vision. They didn't just happen randomly, you know, but this is what scientific materialists would tell us.
Right.
That it's all random. It's all chaotic and random.
Right. And if everything in the universe is a mental projection, as above, so below, getting into the cosmic laws, then you right fucking then and there can see the motivation behind why they're doing mind control, so that we don't make connection to what we need to be in connection with. Right. And break the chains of domination and control. Now, what is the fucking deal with these assholes, man? What is the deal with the dark priesthoods, and what gives them the idea within their own psyche to perpetuate these systems of domination and control? Go a little bit deeper than you have in context to a lot of the things that you presented. A lot of my viewers know who you are. I've been following your work for quite a while, ever since you actually came out. And when you came out, I was like, damn, finally, here's somebody else that actually gets it, because there were so few people back then. And taking it back to this, what has actually happened in context to the wars between the brotherhoods, people that are into magic? What is the dynamic that's really going on beyond most of the veils that most people have been able to pierce, man?
Oh, that's a gigantic question that incorporates a lot of time. So I'll do my best. Well, what's going on with these individuals who constitute what we would call the dark priest class, or the dark occult? And this is an interconnected network of eclectic groups. It's not one group of people. I almost invariably find that they have an understanding of the real world of the occult. They're not dabblers into the occult. as many people who look into the occult world are. They're not people who are just trying to use the occult just for their own little selfish aims, okay? They're people who really understand what occultism really is. These are the people who I find in my travels, you know, wherever I happen to go or be, that are genuinely awake. The genuinely awake human beings are always studied in the world of the occult, in the realm of occult knowledge and occult thinking, which simply means the hidden, of course. And they have gone into these transpersonal, deep-seated psychological domains, the shadow, the realms of the shadow self, you know, deep into the nested subconscious motivations of themselves and other people, okay? And they have dealt with all of that thick, you know, detritus and debris that all like gets cluttered down in that cellar space of the human psyche and the human mind and soul, and they're not afraid of it. They're often tough, very down to earth, rugged individuals who just say, "I'm going to look there. I'm going to look at that stuff. That's not going to be. I'm not going to be afraid of it because that's part of who I am." Okay? None of us are angels, none of us are devils, but we have the elements of both within us. Okay? And we have to be comfortable with having those elements all within us. And if we don't have them, we're not complete human beings. We're meant to choose about what aspects of the self we will project into the reality that we inhabit. But it's all got to be there. We have to be capable of acts of great good and great evil alike. Okay? Otherwise, like I said, we're not really complete beings. To try to purge aspects of ourselves that we don't like completely, instead of understand that they are there, why they are there, and that we don't want to engage them, or if we have to engage them, we engage them. There is a proper purpose for everything. There is a proper role for everything. So my main point that I want to start with is the people who do understand deeply, who I feel are our real brothers and sisters in this world, and who are really trying to change the dynamic, have done at least a modicum of work, not only upon themselves, but toward the understanding of real occultism, okay? The real study of the hidden laws of nature that are effective in the world, namely natural law. We have free will, but we do not have free will to escape the consequences of the free will behavioral choices that we choose to enact in the world. We act in the world based on free will, but then there are always consequences. And when these consequences come together in the aggregate, in the collective masses of people, they create a total condition that everybody built, co-created together. And this is what we do not yet understand as a species. We don't understand why the aggregate effect of what the whole human species is creating as an entire society worldwide is the destruction and the going away of freedom and rights. They see it happening, they see the physical effect in the world, but then they think they're going to treat it from the physical domain instead of from the domain of mind, spirit, and action. Okay? You have to change the spiritual makeup of yourself. You have to change the mental makeup of yourself, because those are the things that lead to the changes in action, in physical behavior, that then align the behavior to the natural law, inherent laws of behavioral consequence. When we align our behaviors to the moral laws of creation, then we are going to consciously co-create what we say we want for ourselves as a whole, as a species. Okay? We are going to consciously co-create peace and freedom, etc., instead of the kind of chaos and slavery and death that we are unconsciously co-creating today. To do that in the aggregate, people must come to an understanding of occult knowledge. It will never, ever, ever occur until they take that knowledge into themselves. Get over it, folks. It ain't going to happen. Okay? It ain't going to happen till that knowledge is taken in by the masses of humanity. And I'm going to say, my guesstimate, if you will, is we're going to have to reach a tipping point of half the human population. I don't think any less than 50% is going to even come close to getting it done. Okay? In consciousness. Right. In consciousness. Now, we could extend the life, so to speak, in the physical way, as it has been done in the past, but that's not doing it long term for sure. Mm-hmm. Doing it long term has to be done through knowledge. And I talk about the importance of keeping armed rebellion and revolution on the table. And it absolutely could be done, and it absolutely could be won. But I don't want to see it have to come to that for multiple reasons. One, the amount of bloodshed and loss of life is going to be enormous. And even a victory is going to seem like a defeat. And there's not really going to be any real winners in that scenario because of the amount of just absolute things that are done in war don't change anybody really ultimately for the better. Let's just put it that way. Okay, we know this, and people are mature enough to really, if they really know what even an inkling of what war really is, they know that it's not going to be good for anybody. Mm-hmm. Okay, sometimes it's necessary, though. There is such a thing as righteous war. But two, we have to understand that that's not going to get it rooted into the public consciousness permanently. The only thing that's going to get it rooted into the public conscious permanently is to actively do this work of introspection and psychology upon ourselves. So I'm going to get to where the priest class, where they think. But we need to understand where the average mindset of people is at to understand why this priest class holds so much power and holds the view of us that they do. Okay? I'll use an anecdote. I'm talking to somebody, and they say, do you really think that, like, to really understand freedom and really start putting a dent in this, people really have to know the things that you know and study the things that you've studied? And I'm like, yes! Yes! Are you not listening or paying attention at all? This is all the same study and work for everyone because it's about us. It's about who we are ultimately. Mm-hmm. And this person is basically asking me, aren't there any shortcuts? Aren't there any shortcuts? We actually have to do this work. We have to spend this time and pay all this attention and read and study and work with our own self and our own psyche. Yes! There are no shortcuts. Anybody telling you that there's a shortcut, you're going to go fall at the feet of a guru and then suddenly be enlightened, they're full of shit. They're lying to you. Okay? This is why my message is not very popular, Sethikus. You know, I'm not super well-liked. I may be well-liked in a tiny little corner of the community, way up here, just out of view. Okay? But, you know, the body of humanity, here's what I have to say, and they're like, screw this guy. You know, he's telling me I have to change to see any real-world change. He's telling me I have to do all this work. I'm going to have to spend time doing this. I might have to give up things that I wanted to do with that time for myself, for my own personal selfish reasons. Okay? Screw that, man. You go ahead and try to lift that big boulder all by yourself. You're asking me to get involved and help? Can't be bothered. That's their mindset. Right. And now, these ancient psychologists.
That mindset right there is what the dark priest class counts on.
Feeds on.
Another factor here in context is the fucking fact, as far as I'm concerned, they don't fucking care if people know what they're doing. In fact, they
not anymore
fucking know what they're doing because they know humanity isn't going to do anything to actually change and lie to themselves. Okay? Right. That's the very first thing that people need to fucking do is stop fucking lying to themselves about the current human condition. Wake the fuck up and realize that
that's right.
Real knowledge that the dark priest class doesn't want us to attain is the knowledge of self and what we are capable of as humans in connection to our true core essence, let alone what's beyond the grid works of consciousness that they are working from, triangulating humanity into this paradigm.
That's right.
Taking people out of the fulcrum. drawing the circle of the magician. And the way the dark ones use the circle is completely different than what I teach my students, okay? But this is where you go to do the work, finding that sacred space where you go within and you're transmuting all of this darkness and ignorance, getting down to the core true essence of who you are, all the memories of the things that have happened in the past, the true history, right? These are things that have come to me going through the process that you're talking about. And
Right.
I can't stress it enough, the importance of this, because we're not going to evolve as a species, first of all, until we realize that the heavens above are within us, right?
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, they don't care if we know what they know or what they're doing. In fact,
They have us right where they want us in their mindset.
it reinforces the issue, because nobody's actually going to do anything to go, okay, what is another option here? The choices that most people have aren't even the choices they're making themselves. They're just
Not at all.
Yeah, and then they don't have to take responsibility for their own evolution or their own
Exactly.
or own awakening.
Even their own actions. Right. They want to pass the responsibility for their actions onto the, boss above them or the one who gave them the orders,
Yeah.
and they believe that they can abdicate that personal responsibility. That's the mindset of a child. And that's where they have people. So going back to where their mindset is at, where is the sorcerer's mindset? Where is the controller? Where is the social engineer's mindset? Their mindset is, we have socially manipulated and engineered the modern human, the modern man and woman, into a perennial child, an eternal child that does not want to grow up, that does not want to learn the reality of the situation. Like you said, what is the first step of any initiatory process into the world of the occult or the world of occult teachings or mystery tradition teachings? The first and most important step of the entire process is stop lying to yourself. This is rule number one of every initiatory tradition throughout human history. Stop lying to yourself. And this is where people don't have enough self-respect for themselves, to stop lying to themselves. What have you ever gotten from the world of authority? What has government ever done for anyone? Okay? What has ignoring problems ever gotten for anyone? What has not looking at the cause of why something goes wrong, as opposed to just trying to look at the aftermath and the effect? Okay? What's that ever gotten anybody? Refusal to look at that. See, this is where, even in biblical terms, what is the ultimate sin in biblical terms? The ultimate sin is denial. Denial. Because when you deny and lie to yourself, when you do ultimately deep down inside know better, you are saying to the universe, fuck truth. That's what you're ultimately saying to creation. And when you say that to creation, through the process of denial and lying to yourself, there's nothing more than you can do to spit into your own face. That's what you're really doing. You think you're doing it to something external,
Right.
but ultimately that is spitting in your own face when you are lying to yourself. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of how I attempt not to lie to myself, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. I'm going to be very honest with your listening audience and tell them something that I haven't and that they really haven't heard. You might extrapolate it. You might guess that I get into this state of mind, and far too often. And the person says, when I go into public anymore, because they know, in general, what we know regarding the human condition and the control system and the levels of ignorance that are out there. He said, when I go into public in big space, places where there's a lot of people, he said, I almost have an anxious, energy, because I recognize the unbelievable levels of ignorance that I'm surrounded by, and these people's fields affect my field.
Yeah.
It's hard to just remain stoic and unaffected. I'm going to tell you what my answer was to him, but it was interesting what he said, and it made me think a lot. It made me think a lot of my emotional work that I need to do. Okay? I'm just being honest with people. You know, I don't blow smoke up people's ass and try to pretend that I'm the most holy guy or anything. Okay? I actually laugh all the time. Like, people are looking at me for an example. I know a thing or two about a thing or two, but you don't want to put me up on any kind of a pedestal, and I never asked anybody to. Okay? I'm asking you to do the work on yourself to understand what's really going on within you and around you. That's all. Okay? And I don't want to be believed. I want to be heard, and then I'm making the appeal and the invite for other people to do the same research and work, and you'll come to the same conclusion if it was true. Okay? So anyway, the person says to me, I go in large groups of people, I feel almost like social anxiety, and it's like I can't relate to any of these people because they're so ignorant. They're so dumb and ignorant that it's just like they don't know anything about anything. And he said, but I don't hate them for it. I know how manipulated they are. Okay? And here's what I said in return. I said, I feel almost the same way. I mean, I was actually thinking this the other day, which was odd that then somebody would bring it up to me. I'm thinking the more I go out in crowds, the more I walk on the street or ride my bike in the street or go down to a market somewhere, okay, and I'm around large crowds of people, the more and more I'm so on edge around them almost all the time, okay, and it's gotten worse. I didn't used to be that bad, but as I have learned more and more and more and more and keep progressing on that journey of knowledge, and I see that the average person still refuses to begin to initiate themselves into any learning at all that is meaningful and matters and is really going to affect the dynamic of human freedom in any way whatsoever. They absolutely refuse to do that. The more and more I'm around huge swaths of hordes, throngs of the ignorant masses, okay? I am not someone who cannot be affected at an emotional and spiritual level. And let me tell you something. The so-called gurus and spiritual teachers that tell you, oh, you should try to work to do nothing but to steel yourself and harden yourself and be as stoic as possible and not be affected, they're full of shit.
Right.
Okay? They're full of shit is what I will say to them and anyone listening. Okay? We are meant to be positively and negatively affected emotionally, to have a dynamic interchange of energies and fields. That's what this whole realm is about. That's why we're in a realm where it's a shared experience amongst individuals, okay, to have that dynamic interplay of energy. But I was honest with my friend. I wasn't lying to myself. What I said was the truth. Was it good? No, it was dark, okay? But it was the truth. And I said to him, I feel the same way. I feel the same energy that you feel. And I said, however, I do hate them. Because I don't feel that it's just a manipulatory effort.
And really what you hate is the fucking lie and the fucking fact that these people are the ones perpetuating it while those that are in power are just laughing their fucking sick fucking asses off like you talked about.
And let me qualify my statement. I have put out this idea of that we have to have the worldview that these people are mentally ill. We are teachers inside of an insane asylum. They're sick people. These are sick people, okay? They're soul sick. When the person said to me, consciousness and spirituality are meaningless terms to me, the reason I said I can't teach you is one individual is not going to have the power to transform an individual like that. He's in a traumatized, spiritually deadened state. This person is soul sick, doesn't even know he's soul sick. That's what psychopathology is. The sickness of the soul, the sickness of the mind, and the sickness of the soul. And he may not be a psychopath, but he has a form of psychopathology, the illness of the psyche. That's what this is. That's what this is about. Psychopathy may not necessarily be that one thing that we think it is, that it's this monster, There's different illnesses of the soul that turn people into having a psychopathological makeup. that they need healing for. So while I know that this person is sick, at the same time, I perceive and see in our shared environment, people saying, I'm okay with being sick. They even recognize that they're all fucked up. And they're embracing it and saying, I'm okay the way that I am. And nobody else is supposed to say, no, you're not. You're really badly fucked up. And you need help and healing to get out of that mindset, because it's not productive for you as an individual, and it's certainly not productive for all of society, because your ignorance contributes to the collective enslavement of humanity.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's not really a right to remain that ignorant. See, to say, I know how fucked up I am, all right, and I like it that way and I don't want to change, okay, is like saying, I don't care how negatively I impact the freedom of all human beings. And that's not a right. When they display that this is, yes, this is their mental attitude, I'm hearing fuck truth, fuck freedom, and fuck all the people that want to be free. I'm not interested in helping. Okay? And now when I hear that dynamic come out of another human being, I want to make this perfectly clear and qualify the statement that I made. I don't hate what they have become. I understand what they have become. I'm saying the statement very out in the open. I hate them. Them, the essence of who they actually are.
Right.
And this is what I'm personally struggling with right now. Because it is very easy to become consumed with hatred when you are around people who are willfully ignorant. And when you're willfully ignorant in the presence of knowledge, that is the measure of evil. We're no longer talking about just negatively influenced. We're no longer talking about just maybe under some mind control. We're talking about making a conscious, willful, free will choice to not engage in truth.
Okay.
Not to get into, yeah.
Yeah. There's some interference coming through.
All right, hold on. You hear me?
Ah, there we go. Perfect.
Better?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the spirits, man.
We're getting into the heart of things.
You know what, Mark? I can definitely relate to that feeling.
Sure.
Because you look out and you're like, what the fuck? You see the decay of consciousness. You see the decay of fucking society. Why isn't anybody passionate about the things that we're passionate about? You know what I'm saying? Nobody told me I have to do this. This was actualized from within myself, from within my own true core essence, okay? I remember seeing you back in the day, other people as well, and that shit was fucking inspiring me as an individual while having to deal with everything that you're talking about with other fucking people.
Yep.
Falling out after falling out after falling out after falling out. And then you find yourself alone. You feel like you're fucking crazy sometimes because of what has been revealed to you, what you know, what you've experienced, and then you have to be with it. You have to literally sit with it and go through that process of awakening that we're talking about. And unfortunately, that's happening even with a lot of my students. They hit me up and we get into things, but they deal with this innate feeling like they're alone in the world. Like there's nobody else that gets them. There's nobody else that gets it, and they just have to stay silent and not stir the pot like we're actually supposed to. You know?
It becomes almost as if the world is a huge torture chamber to just torment the people who are conscious of the human condition.
Right.
It literally seems like that sometimes.
But is it really that? Is it really that, or has it just been like that for so fucking long?
Yep.
The unconscious, subconscious conditioning that we're dealing with, that we're not even consciously aware of, that we're fucking dealing with, is still operating our minds, our system mechanics, our energy bodies, all this kind of stuff, keying people into the lower astral grid works.
Right.
And see, one of the major things that you talked about that I don't really hear anybody else touch upon is emotional mind control.
Right.
Emotional mind control. And the thing about emotion is that this is the energy in motion. And it's not okay to be emotional in society today.
Right.
You've got to be like this fucking, docile fucking zombie.
Exactly.
If you say anything contrary to the contrast, I'll say.
Right.
The insurmountable amount of fucking overlay that's happening not only within the psyche of the individual, but the energy body and the true mind of the individual. And where I've discovered getting into the sciences that I practice is that it is happening specifically with the emotional body. Okay?
Sure.
And emotion is where we get our magic, right? When you set forth an intention, when you have that thought set forth as an intention, and then you give it that emotional charge, you hold that within the fulcrum for a certain amount of time, and then take action upon the intention that you set forth. That's when the ripple effect really goes out.
Right.
And I know it works because it's happening in my own life. Now,
sure. And if you bring multiple people together to set forth an intention and then go out and take action upon it, you'll see it'll manifest faster and more powerfully.
Yeah, and that's happening all the time anyway. It's just, okay, what the fuck are people doing?
Well, that's what these dark occultists are certainly doing. They act as mastermind groups in which they are focusing intent and sending energy out to the world and getting people focused on all the same things at the same time through the mass media. They're refocusing their intent and taking it away from where it really needs to be. So, it is because these people do not want to do the work. They're afraid of what they might find within themselves. And you know what? There is a good reason for that. It's like a lot of times I think it's like the people who really do have some good inner qualities and just were led astray aren't as loath to do this work. They will look at it and say, well, I'll dig in there because we're going to get into the roots there and really dig them up and see what's in there. But maybe we're individuals who there was some debris and crust in there, and we had to work with it. But it wasn't so bad that we were like so horrified of what we would find there. And I'll work with it. We'll start with what's there and we'll work from there. But I think these people might really be such pieces of filth and vermin deep down in their heart and soul. And I'm just speaking honestly. I'm just saying what I really think, why they're so afraid to do the work. That they're really, really bad individuals. They're truly bad people.
Right, like
and they don't really want to do that work because they're going to go deep into those realms and they're going to be like, holy shit, what a fucking monster I am. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to find when they get down there. Yeah. And they're afraid of that because they're like, what kind of work am I going to have to do upon myself? Well, I think I was a priest in the Church of Satan around people with some of the darkest worldviews and the most hatred for other people, that they called people the dead. That was their name for the average man and woman, the dead. They're spiritually dead, they're mentally dead, they're emotionally dead, and they don't take any action in the world. So for all intents and purposes, they are a corpse. And they literally referred to people as the dead. Now, that's the kind of people I worked around, right? And you think of how soul sick I had to put myself in that situation, to take on a worldview like that, to work with other people who had that kind of a worldview for years. Yet, when I finally started coming out of that state of mind and that low level of base consciousness and going into the realms, the psychological domains that I had to go into to work myself out of that condition and do this deep shadow work upon myself, what I still found there, I do not believe was as dark and messed up as what the average man and woman on the street is going to find when they do that work. This is why I think that they don't want to do it. They are so afraid of how bad the seller is going. The seller is going to have shit and piss dripping off the walls, and
Right.
it's going to be laying on the floor knee deep. And that's why they don't want to go down there. This is about deep shadow work, getting into the basement of the subconscious mind and soul. And this is what most people are going to find down there. They're not going to find a place where, whoa, a couple boxes fell over and, maybe there's a puddle of water over in the corner. That's not what most people are going to find down there. They're going to find blood-spattered walls. They're going to find human remains all scattered all over. Okay, they're going to find horrors in there, and they don't want to do that work because they're going to find out that they're truly bad people. How they think, how they feel, and how they act. And the reason that it's gotten to that point is my overarching theme for this particular interview: denial. And what Sethikus said, they're lying to themselves. They're lying to themselves that they're okay. They're lying to themselves that they're not sick. They're lying to themselves that they're good people. Okay? I did a social experiment as part of the natural law seminar, the extended 6-week version of the natural law seminar that I gave here to a class in Philadelphia. And part of the homework assignment was to ask people all these questions about morality and moral choices, in which 75% of them miserably failed. Like, there were correct answers to the moral questions posed about what actions were right and which actions were wrong. 75% of them absolutely miserably failed to answer the questions correctly and gave all these contradictory and outright wrong answers regarding human morality, proving they don't really have the knowledge that comprises conscience. Conscience is knowledge. It's science. Science means having the science of morality together. That's what the word conscious means. Common sense regarding the science of human morality. And it's not a belief system or a religion. It's a science. It can be known. There are measurable laws to it, and then we can know how it operates, just like we know how any other aspect of the scientific world operates, of the natural world operates, through the scientific discovery process. Okay, the scientific methodology. No belief required. Okay, but these people do not want to do that inner homework. They answered all these questions wrong regarding morality, and then in the next question, we ask them, do you consider yourself a good moral individual? In other words, quite simply, are you a good person? And 100% of the people said, yes, I'm a good person. No one wants to say, I'm a bad person. They don't want to acknowledge, no, I don't have the knowledge of morality. Even if I do, I still think human beings get to make up the difference between right and wrong behavior. This is, what we see over and over again, moral relativism. In places where people say they want freedom too. It all comes back to that dynamic of denial and lying to oneself. You have to stop lying to yourself about who you have become, which is the first and foremost step in the process of initiation. Okay? And this is why when I looked at my friend and I said, I understand how you feel, and now let me be honest with you about how I feel. I don't want to sugarcoat it and lie, not only to another person who I'm talking to, I don't want to lie to myself about it. I'm not going to lie to myself about how I feel, about where my emotions are at. I'm going to acknowledge the presence of them and say, yes, this is how I feel. And then I'm going to try to transmute it into something better than that and continue to try to educate, even though I may feel like that. Okay? But I'm not going to lie to myself that I feel like that, to try to prop myself up into some better human being that I am. I realize I have shortcomings, and I'm not perfect. I would never claim to be perfect. Okay? I think anybody claiming to be perfect is lying to themselves. Okay? So, that's the first step of getting out of denial. Stop lying to yourself. It's the first step on the initiation process into the true occult understanding of our reality and how it functions and how we function. But then, I'll give you another quick example, quick anecdote. Talking to a person at a liberty-oriented event, freedom-oriented event, And the topic was the drug war. All right. And is it moral? Is it even effective, etc.? All of this. We got into the topic of self-ownership. Does someone really own themselves? Okay. Do you own your body? Do you own your mind? Do you own your consciousness to modify it and change it as you see fit and work on it as you see fit? Even if you want to put a substance into your body. We're sitting there drinking alcohol and talking about, well, the state would say that we have the right to drink this, but the state would say, I don't have the right to take a piece of cannabis and smoke it, in this state anyway. Okay, and then they want to say, well, there's different rules in different places, and in some other countries, you may not allowed to be allowed to drink alcohol. At certain times, you were allowed to, and then at other times, you weren't. It's like all of these things are arbitrary constructs and rule sets made up by man. And I'm trying to explain to him that this is what moral relativism is. And a person at a freedom-related function was saying to me, well, man does get to make up what right and wrong are. These aren't natural things. They're constructs that we invent. He said, this person said this to me. I said, you're for freedom? I said, you're here because you want more freedom and less government. Yes. I said, and you believe man gets to make up what a right behavior is and what a wrong behavior is. That we make that up according to our perception, our likes at any given time, our whims or preferences at any given time, depending on how the wind blows, and we say, okay, that's okay for here, and no, that's not okay here. Oh, wait, may I change my mind? It's okay, but at this time. Then next week it's not going to be okay again. I said, you actually believe that that's how rights exist, that they come from us. Right and wrong come from us, from human beings. And he said, yes. And I said, your ignorance regarding the nature of right and wrong is the very, I actually said this to his face. See, when I'm around people, I don't mince my words and I don't censor myself. I say right to their face what I think of them. I said, you, because of your ignorance, are one of the contributors to the death of freedom, and you don't understand that you are. Your ignorance regarding the difference between right and wrong behavior in nature, as an inherent natural thing, your ignorance of those factors is the underlying causal reason that humanity is enslaved. You don't even know that you're a contributor of the slavery, paying lip service to freedom and saying you want more freedom, and you don't. I said, you don't even understand the first thing about the dynamics of how human freedom in a society is generated or lost. You don't understand those factors. It's like it's literally like being like a nuclear physicist and then talking with a little child who doesn't even know how to add 2 plus 2 and is saying 2 plus 2 is 6. You're wrong, Mr. Physicist, high-level physicist with a million PhDs who has been in the field forever and understand how it really works. But you're wrong. All your calculations are wrong. Because 2 plus 2 is 6. That's what it's like. And people wonder why, like, I get angry. This is how absolutely ridiculous what I hear from people on a day-to-day basis is. He doesn't even understand that moral relativism will forever keep the dynamic of slavery in place permanently. As a permanent fixture, it is going to be lodged in place, unmovable, unwaveringly. Get used to slavery as long as there's moral relativism, because freedom cannot manifest in a society that embraces moral relativism, which is the idea that man gets to make up what right and wrong are.
Right. And this, what you're talking about in context, psychologically speaking, goes back to postmodernism, okay? Whatever is truth to you is truth. And
that's right.
Well, this is my truth, and this person can have their truth, but my truth doesn't agree with their truth. And
yep,
how
that's postmodern ideology. That's exactly what that is. Yes,
and that's definitely peddled by the New Age, like we both know. I remember learning about this though a long time ago. where people were justifying certain states of mind, not seeing the effect that it was having on other people around them. They were just putting themselves on a pedestal, and then everybody else just has to placate, right?
Exactly.
And then they position themselves to be the arbiters of truth.
That's right.
Without actually being in alignment with any sort of truth whatsoever.
Yep. That's right.
So,
And that's what solipsism is.
right.
So they degrade into the ideology known as solipsism, which is I'm the arbiter of truth based on my perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nothing else except my perceptions. Therefore, I basically control all of reality, and there's no real truth. Nothing can really be known except what I personally believe at any given time. And that's the ultimate expression of postmodernism, is solipsism.
And you can see how the divide and conquer unfolds with that dynamic, because everybody wants to cling on to their infantile, inverted perception. And then we all are fighting amongst.
That's right. And this is what the social engineers have socially engineered.
Exactly.
See, that's what they have put into effect. See, they don't believe this stuff. They've given this as bait to people to take. One of the actual sins in the dark occult, the realm of the dark occult, mental behaviors that their membership and priest class should just never engage in, because it doesn't lead to them coming out on top. And one of them is solipsism. Mm-hmm. But what they always want to do is feed the thing that will lead to failure to the unwashed masses of slaves.
Okay, that's something I wanted to ask you in context to these quote-unquote sins of the dark priest class. I'm looking at this shit going, okay, there is something actually fucking to this.
Of course.
Do you think, though, that, take it back to fucking ancient times, because this is something I want to talk about, what happened in ancient times leading up to the present moment in context to the wars that have taken place among the brotherhoods? They've obviously taken certain principles, hoard that fucking knowledge, and then keep it from people.
Then they invert it, and then they give the inverted version to the masses to act upon, because they know that will lead them into deeper bondage. And it will lead them into deeper mastery over those who are still in complete abject ignorance. And that's the situation we still have today. Nothing has changed in tens of thousands of years. So, let's speak to this dynamic. I was talking with a couple of friends about what is the only species that does not live in equilibrium with this planet and cannot survive on the surface, is not adapted to survive on the surface of this planet in the natural conditions that this planet offers. No one is going to be able to give the answer that there's any more species than one, and that is mankind, humankind, Homo sapiens sapiens. So the question then becomes, do you believe, is it your worldview and belief that nature does that? So if you look at all the rest of nature, okay, does it make a planet, make all the environmental living conditions of the planet, and then make beings that inhabit that condition, those spaces on that realm, that are not adapted to living in that space and on that realm? Does nature do this? Did it do it with the elephant? Did it do it with the tiger, with the giraffe, with the fish, with the coral, whatever? Whatever form of life you see, it is adapted to living in the environment that it lives in. And it doesn't destroy the environment that it lives in. It lives in homeostasis or equilibrium with that environment. Okay? It uses what it needs, and it doesn't annihilate its living conditions. Humanity is the only species that nature didn't do that with. Is nature broken that it doesn't understand, it didn't understand magically that we're not adapted to living on the surface of this planet? This is part of the questions we have to ask ourselves and go back into the ancient past for answers to realize what has happened here and why, and what led into the current condition. So the first thing to consider is, are we actual natural native inhabitants of the planet Earth? Well, of course, we descended from these beings, and then we adapted and changed and developed language and tool making, and I don't think that's the case. I personally don't accept that. Yeah, we're native inhabitants of the planet through the evolutionary process.
I would say that originally, yes, but the de-evolution of consciousness in place of the dark priesthood, and everything they've done to manipulate and dominate and control mankind has cut us off from being connected to our natural environments.
What about just not just mental manipulation? What about physical manipulation?
That too.
You see, I think we've been physically wired differently through genetic manipulation in the past. And again, I go into some of this in my Cosmic Abandonment series, and it's an occult worldview. This is something, and many people are loath to look into it because of the horrors that they will find. See, once again, let's go back to the theme of the whole day, shall we? We have to stop lying to ourselves. We have to stop saying it's not so bad. We're not in such a bad position. We're not so sick. When we do what we're going to do to this planet in the sick mental state that we are in, I'm telling you, it's so bad that we're not going to get another chance in this form.
Right, unless we catch it now.
Right.
Unless
and I mean, it is the 11th.
And drive it the fuck forward, like you have been, like I have been, other people as well.
We need to drive it like we're the third reigning.
There you go.
Okay? That's how hard we need to drive it, because it is that time. It's that time. It's the 11th hour, 59th minute, 59th and a half second. That's where we're at. And, you know, people will say, this is fear-mongering. No, it's my honest assessment of where humanity is. If you don't like it, I don't give a shit. We're at the crossroads with the evil one, okay? And at the crossroads, that's where the choice has to be made. Which path are you going to walk down? You're going to walk down the path that leads to enslavement, chaos, or you're going to walk down the path that leads to doing very hard, introspective work in which we personally do the work to realize just who it is we have become. Not just who we are down at our nature level, at the natural level, but who we have allowed ourselves to become. This is what the long, dark night of the soul is. This is what occult work is. Look, when I came out of Satanism, recognizing I didn't even understand what I was involved with at the time. It took me years to even grasp what my experience just had been. That's how unconscious I was. And I said to myself, look what I allowed myself to become involved with. I just allowed myself to become involved with the purest architects of evil on this world, who have the worldview that we're God, and we're going to be the slave masters. We're going to be the masters of all the slaves that we mentally create. We're going to create them mentally as slaves. We're going to dumb them down. We're going to spiritually destroy them, and then we're going to rule them forever as their gods. Right. That's how they think. That's their actual
and you know what's interesting about what you're saying, man? I'm aware of other networks. They're literally pushing everything that you're saying, packaging it in the light of logic and reason, right?
In a positive light.
They worship the fucking intellect, right?
Yep.
Fuck intuition, fuck any sort of spiritual, connection to anything,
or heart-based intelligence. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's just mental logic, mathematics.
Yep.
And that's fucking it.
Just like an individual I was talking to last night at a function, okay? Pure left brain. The left brain was whirring like a propeller blade. And endlessly. And going down these like little twists and turns, and like, well, what if this little thing happens, and then we have this scenario here, and he's weaving this convoluted web that, I mean, if you put it on a board, it would have looked like a house of shit. Okay? I actually stopped him. Like I said, look, at the risk of being an asshole, I'm going to stop you, and I'm just going to tell you, your mind is so all over the place. Your thinking is so convoluted and goes off on such ridiculous tangents that you can't see the forest for the trees. I actually had, you imagine having to stop another human being's train of thought and say to them, this is how fucked up your brain works. That you are so left brain that you cannot see a simple philosophical and spiritual truth of don't initiate aggression against other people. Could not get him to an accurate understanding of the simplicity of the non-aggression principle. Don't do violence. Don't be a violent person. Don't initiate force when you don't have the right to initiate force. If you're being attacked, you have the right to respond with force. That's called self-defense. But don't start stuff with other people. Don't initiate violence. Don't take things from people. Don't try to take their rights away. Don't try to take their freedom away. Don't do bodily injury to them. And he couldn't get the idea that if no one has the right to do these harmful things, we can't delegate the right to do these harmful things. Meaning, we have no right to constitute government because government is the actual delegation of special rights called authority to people who don't actually possess it as individuals. And he couldn't understand that if three people come together and they don't have $100 between the three of them, that they can't give a fourth person $100. Not having something means you can't give it to someone else. And he couldn't keep the construct at that basic simplicity, at that level of simplicity, because he has no heart-based intelligence. And I was trying to tell him, I'm like, you don't know that you're broken. You think you're functioning normally. I'm like, I actually feel for you. You don't understand. I said, I'm trying to tell you, you're mentally broken. There's something wrong with how your brain functions, and it's okay for me to say that to you. I have the right to say it to you when I recognize that it's the case. He actually said philosophy doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything, accomplish anything, and it's not important to me. Just think about how.
And it's fun. It's funny, man, because this is what the dark Luciferians are pushing now.
They've built this person. He is what they call the new man. They have an android concept that they are building a being that is devoid of an actual spiritual essence, that they're a golem, a flesh robot, a creature that can be programmed, that looks like a being because they're made of flesh and bone and blood, okay, but they're not actually, they don't actually have any essence of humanity left within them. And I was trying to explain to him, you're on your way to this. You're so soul sick and you're so mentally imbalanced toward the left brain. I said, what do? Turns out he's a computer programmer. So he's always in the realm of logic all day, 24 hours, where you have to constantly split things off and say, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What you have to, programmers are always looking for those possibilities because you never know which way a program may go or which way user input may go. So he's trapped in left brain, logic only. What if? Everything that came out of his mouth was, what if? If this happens, then what if? You know what I keep telling people? What if is the beginning of slavery? What if is the beginning of every fear-based statement
what if
a human being can utter.
What if is always an assumption.
Right, because the future doesn't exist.
It's speculation, it's not reality, and it's hearsay. And
that doesn't mean
you can't base your life upon what if.
That's right.
You're saying that.
That's right.
Fucking do. And
that doesn't mean don't take any preparedness for what possibly could occur. That's being.
I'm talking about the extreme of it, man.
Total projection.
All up in their fucking heads and paranoid.
They live in the head. Yep.
About all this type of shit with no sort of balance between the two hemispheres. And here's another factor, man. They got brainwave technology now that they're fucking with the brainwaves, man.
And they could push people into those states of imbalance. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That technology.
People on a delta, theta, beta brainwave frequency. And I talked about this in my most recent video. We need to be up on an alpha, gamma brainwave to integrate or process higher consciousness that's going to bring us into alignment with that true heart intelligence, man.
That's what modalities of working with the subconscious are all about, which is why it is important to learn proper meditation. EFT may help. There's many different aspects. Studying martial arts is another good way, of getting into these altered states of consciousness. It's like he's so locked into that ordinary everyday state of left brain thinking that he doesn't even know that something's been taken from him.
No.
He doesn't even know. I'm like, you don't even know. You can't stop and feel something, can you? I'm like, do you really feel anything? I actually said, you can't actually stop and see this from a heart-based perspective, because do you really have that level of intelligence? I had to say this to him for him to stop for a minute in his rambling of left brain tangents and say, stop for a minute. Do you hear what you're saying? All I'm saying is, don't do harm. Look at the complexity that you're, the paths, the neural pathways that you're going down to just avoid the simple thing. Don't initiate violence against your brothers and sisters, man. That's it. That's a heart-based intelligence that you have to arrive at. You can get to it logically if you just stop lying to yourself, but you're going to get to that through heart-based intelligence way faster than you're going to get to that through left brain intelligence, through mental intelligence. And that's why people are incomplete. They're not doing this work upon themselves to try to balance themselves. They're all over the place in various states of imbalance, and they're not honest with themselves about where they're at. He thinks he's okay. This person is mentally sick and believes that he's mentally well. He has done none of this work upon himself and actually made the statement. Just think about this. In the year 2018, see, this is a person who claims to have freedom-oriented leanings and is concerned about the loss of freedom. This is who we're working with, Sethikus, in our realm and communities, okay? This is the quality of individual that turns out at concerned individuals' meetings and freedom-oriented meetings. This is what we have to work with. Imagine where the general population is at. Right. When a person in the year 2018 at a meeting about freedom said philosophy is a worthless pursuit. Could you imagine mentally where we are at as a species? I mean, it's whatever I'm telling you folks, you have to understand it's way worse than that. And you want to know why it continues to be worse than that? He may have never heard any kind of thoughts that I brought to him last night from one other living soul since the day he was born. That's the reason. That's the underlying reason. The work is not being done. Too few people are engaging the work and getting on the battlefield and actually doing something, not paying lip service to it, not taking in more and more and more and more and more and more of what Mark Passio says or what Sethikus Boza says or what anybody else says, but actually getting on the battlefield, working upon themselves, getting their house in order, and then teaching what they have learned to others by passing along that knowledge. No. See, they don't, because then, again, it goes back to what we said at the beginning of the show, okay? Toward the beginning, I said, I show people what I do to that effect every day. I show people what it is to do that work. And you know what they say? Give me a broom and a shovel and let me go shovel elephant shit at the circus or the zoo before I do this work. That's what they'll say. That is preferable. Okay, let me go work in some swill-laden sewage plant before I do this as an everyday thing.
Right.
That's what they'll say. Because they're like, you want me to be like you and do what you're doing during the course of the day? They're like, you're out of your mind, man. You can have it. Right. You can keep it.
The unfortunate thing about what you're addressing is the fucking fact that people are going to be left with what they choose to create.
That's right.
And not seeing the consequence of the actions that they're taking is something I think a lot of people aren't willing to face, like you're talking about. In context to my video that's called Psychology of Evil and the Energy Force, if people cannot see their potential for the ultimate evil, they will never be free from it. They'll be in denial, like you're talking about, and they will continue to perpetuate it instead of actually being the cause point in the reality field, which you myself and other people are trying to be in alignment with truth. Now, I want to take this interview with you to another level now and touch upon as much as you can the difference between inverted magic via sorcery,
right,
versus true magic.
Okay. Great question. I find a lot of synchronicities in this interview, actually, because the things you're asking have come up very recently, the last few days, with people I have been engaged in conversations with, talking about very similar issues to all the questions you're asking in this particular interview. So highly synchronous, and I don't think that's an accident. Someone asked me the question about magic and where my take is, what my take is on quote unquote magic. And that phrase, first of all, means a lot of different things to people. And I would like to define what my understanding and view of magic is before I go any further in breaking down what I consider the different forms of magic to be. I will qualify that I feel there are actually 3 forms of magic. Okay. And I've only really talked about 2. Meaning light magic and dark magic, in the sense that whether it is done for good purposes or whether it is done for manipulation, control, and dark purposes, and to put people into a state of mental and physical slavery even, okay? If we delineate between basic good intentions and basic bad intentions, we will understand that the definition of magic is actually the same. It's the same knowledge and it's the same process, but it's just the wielder determines through their consciousness how that knowledge and influence is going to be used. So it is about, the consciousness and the intent of the user of that methodology. So let's define the term magic first. Magic is the science and art and ability to influence change to occur in the world that is in accordance with the will, meaning 2 different things. See, so the 2 different forms of magic are going to be hinged upon how we then define that term, the will. Magic is the science, the art, the capability of influencing change, and the methodology of influencing change in accordance with what one wants to see in the world. And that is what we can consider the will. Now, if we say it's all about what we want, that's the lower will. We're talking about now what I would call lesser magic. And that means we're trying to align the influence, the result of what we're trying to influence in the world, with what we personally want as individuals. If we take a step outside of ourselves and we engage in a wider worldview and a wider understanding, and we understand what's really going on in the world, then we can take magic to a totally higher level. If we employ it to influence things in the world and change them in accordance with the higher will, the will of creation, the will of the universe, okay? The universe gave us free choice for a purpose, not just randomly. It wants something to happen. There is an intent within creation, and it is aligned to the good. See, it's not just neutral. It's aligned to a higher intent, and that intent is it wants to see consciousness evolve to higher and higher levels. That's how it comes to know itself, through the experience of higher levels of consciousness. Therefore, creation wants freedom. It wants possibility. It wants knowledge. It wants higher states of complexity and evolutionary progression to go on and on and on. It wants growth. That's what creation desires. If we get in touch with that will, and we set our individuated will to the side long enough to listen, what is the evolutionary process? What is the underlying intent and consciousness of creation? What does it want? silence the mind enough that's all day long from getting up until we fall asleep saying, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. Shut that voice off for a moment and say, just for a minute, forget about what I want and listen to what the universe wants. Is there a preferred state of things that the universe is trying to achieve, or is it just random? Whatever happens, happens. Do you think that the universe is not an engine of order? Is it not an engine of law? Is it not an engine of creation and developing new layers and levels of complexity and understanding and knowledge and just everything? It wouldn't have bothered to come into existence if that wasn't the purpose for what it was attempting to do, to learn and to grow to higher levels of awareness and consciousness. So when we recognize that that is the intent of what creation is trying to achieve, and we align our individuated will to that higher will, that's higher magic. So there's only really one form of higher magic, but there are two forms of lesser magic. Okay? So there's three overall forms of magic. Two of them are lesser, in which case we are not going to align our will to the higher will. To influence things in accordance with the lower will, the individual will, there's two forms that can take. One is non-harmful, yet self-interested, meaning it is in a service to self modality. It's not in service to others modality, and it's not in service to truth modality. Okay? It's just saying, this is what I want for me, because it's good for me. Me. Okay? Yet, what you are doing is not actually harmful to others. So this is when people do spells for luck, spells for prosperity, spells for sex, spells for, influence with people, for better jobs, for a better home, for health in the family, all of that. It's still all stuff we want for us. Me, us. Okay? So this is a form of non-harmful lesser magic. Then there's a form of harmful lesser magic, and this is the school of sorcery. This is where the sorcerer's mindset is at. This is where the social engineer's mindset is at. This is where the controllers, the sick, psychopathic control freaks of the world, this is where their mindset is at. Okay? So the dark priest class is firmly rooted on this third form of magic that I'm going to talk about, and that is sorcery. We're talking about influencing events and situations in people's mind to rearrange the events of the world the way this small cabal of individuals want it to turn out for their benefit at the expense of other people, even if it means great harm results and great theft of what is not theirs to take as a result of putting this influence and quote-unquote dark magic into effect in the world. So this is lesser magic that is harmful. So I look at there's really three kinds of magic, or in other words, influential work that we do with in the external domain. We could do it in the internal domain as well. Okay, but I think the internal domain, the lesser work, is to get our house in order. And that's also part of the great work. Okay, you have to realize, though, that's the initiatory stage. This is initiation. Right. Getting your house in order is initiation. But then the rhetoric stage of actually going out into the world and then spreading this knowledge and truth to help other people initiate the betterment of themselves and then also become teachers is part of the greater magic. But the initiatory stage I would look at as this is positive light work that we do upon ourselves. Okay? So you have to have some enlightened self-interest, okay, to get your house in order. Then I would say that's part of this magic that is for the self, okay? But if we do that in a non-harmful way and in a way that builds us up to better people, then we can really get involved in greater magic. Greater magic is we recognize the will of creation. We recognize there's this dark force that is set against the will of creation, is trying to manipulate everybody into not understanding that there is any underlying intelligence in creation to begin with, and that there's no soul within the individual or spirit within the individual that is a reflection of the the creation is a reflection of the universe. We want to deny, they want to deny that spiritual aspect and have people not look at it to destroy them spiritually, and then own them mentally and physically as their slaves to get them to do whatever they command and bid, their selfish, sick, psychopathic bidding. So that's what this cabal of sorcerers is doing. But what the great work is to do, real greater magic, is I'm going to align my will with creation's will to help to build an environment that is conducive for learning and growth. And then we're going to work toward real freedom to abolish the state of spiritual, mental, and physical slavery that has been built on this planet as a prison world, which it has become, which is not what it is or was intended to be, but it's what, in our ignorance and in our soul sickness, humanity has allowed it to become. And so that great work is what I consider real greater magic. If people only stay in one of the forms of lesser magic, in one of the forms of just purely self-interested service to self magic, they can never truly be happy or fulfilled. That's why people that you know are always just trying to get more for themselves, they're never happy. They're not happy. They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. Okay? I may not be happy with the current human condition, but guess what? When it comes to who I am as a being, couldn't be happier. I'm good with who I am because I've done this spiritual work and I've done the homework to understand how screwed up I was and to get my head right and get my spiritual aspects right. And then start teaching others. I'm doing what I'm here to be doing. I'm helping to do the great work of truly higher magic. And until people really get onto that, you're not going to see real, true fulfillment in your life. You're not really going to be able to say that you're happy with who you are, regardless of your circumstance. You can still say, hey, I don't particularly like how life is going on this planet, okay? I mean, living as a slave every day because of other people's ignorance and what they believe, absolute psychopaths claim and have a right to and accept erroneously that these people have these rights and these claims are legitimate. Okay, every day around this kind of ignorant thinking and the ignorance of the population, it's painful. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It's not something I'm happy about, that I have to live on a world that's this sick and dumb. Okay, where the people are this mentally and spiritually sick and dumb. Okay, that doesn't make me happy. That's not the level of happiness and fulfillment that I'm talking about. That's situational happiness. That's like, well, is everything the way you want it around you? Okay, I'm comfortable and I'm happy. Not what I'm talking about is real, genuine happiness. I'm talking about, I know that I'm on the right side. I know that I'm on the side of truth. I know that I'm on the right side of history. I know that I'm following the footsteps of truly good people that wanted to make this place better. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, to service the will of creation, to be one of its change agents, to help bring in what it wants to see for all of creation, okay, which is what would be the maximum benefit for all, which would lead to true happiness and comfort and peace and harmony, etc., and real freedom. But until we align our will with that higher will, we're serving lesser magic all the time.
Right.
You know, and that's a very difficult place for people to get their head out of, because in Satanism, they propagate the idea of self-preservation and selfishness as being the highest motivational force, not service to truth, not service to higher forms of consciousness and love, not service to what the universe really wants to create and what it wants to see happen. Okay, we've been given free will, so that outcome is not necessarily assured, even though the force of evolution wants to nudge us along. It's up to us to make it happen. We have to consciously take the reins and direct our evolution at this point. You know, the biology got us up to this point. Now we have the functional mindset to understand natural law and to understand the evolutionary progress and to align our will with it. And that's a free will choice. We choose to do that, we're going to see tremendous positive progress. We refuse, there's that word again, the ultimate sin. We refuse the truth and we don't align ourselves with that process of evolution. We're in for the bumpiest ride of all bumpy rides.
Right.
It's not going to be pleasant. Like I have said in other recent interviews, the wheels are going to come off the bus, folks. Okay? The wheels are coming off the bus right now. And we're in for what I call the way or the journey of maximum pain. And this is what humanity in the aggregate, not all of us, and see, but that's the thing. It's only going to take the aggregate. We're not going to have all separate fates in the physical world. Maybe in the non-physical domain, we may share separate fates, and we may go on different evolutionary courses. But in the physical world on this planet, where we are all interoperating together as physical beings, we're not going to share different fates, folks. It ain't going to be like, whoa, here's the planet, and whoop, it splits off, and now there's another etheric planet over here. That's not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? That's what the New Age bullshitters want to tell you how it works. It doesn't work like that. It's not going to happen like that. We are going to share the same outcome because we are in the same physical domain together. But don't expect different physical outcomes. The aggregate consciousness is going to determine the shared physical outcome. Okay? We're not going to all create different physical realities because the New Age told us you can think differently and feel differently, and then, whoa, you're going to suddenly end up in a different timeline. That's only going to happen if we all do it together.
Right.
Okay? That we have to use our free will to redirect our mental processes and then take control of our behavior to align it with natural law, the moral laws of creation. Then, if enough people do that in the aggregate, we're going to see a different and positive outcome. But to be honest with people, once again, I'm going to tell you how it works, but then I'm going to give you my honest assessment. And my honest assessment is not positive. There's not a positive prognosis here. I cannot, in good faith and in good conscience, tell people something that I do not accept or believe is happening. Okay? It can happen. Right. No one should read the negative things that I say as it must be this way. Right. There's nothing I can stress more than that. Is it does not have to be this way.
Right. It's just it's the natural law consequence.
That's it.
Of certain actions and the law of cause and effect, right?
And it just works that way. You put your hand in a fire, it is going to burn your flesh. That's the consequence of putting your hand in the fire. If you don't want your hand burned, you don't put it over a fire or in a fire. The end. That's how the law works. The law does not care about the flesh of your hand. The law is a boundary condition that is set by the universe. This is fire. This is flesh. Do the math when they come together, and you will understand what will happen. If you don't do the math and understand what will happen, you are going to suffer the suffering and the consequences for your level of ignorance. Should you decide, I'm going to go and touch fire and think I'm going to remain unharmed. Well, good luck with that. And let me know how it works out for you.
That though, man, because you got like the firewalker yogis that do this sort of thing. And that's another thing about magic. A lot of these sorcerers that are out there mesmerizing people, like David Blaine, people want to say it's illusion. I really don't think it is, because they do have a certain level of knowledge about how things actually work, but they're staying in that lesser magic.
Sure.
And using it to mesmerize people instead of actually teaching people how they can come into alignment with cosmic law. And that's what I want to talk about next, the raw power of cosmic law and what it actually puts you in alignment with. And then from that point, once you've mastered the first cosmic law, it's all about your state of mind. This is what I'm driving. It's all about your state of mind. And if your mind is not in alignment with your true core essence, then you're going to be pulled into all these different situations. So pulling it back, the foundation. Mm-hmm. Okay? I would like you to get into the raw power of cosmic law and why it is actually necessary for people to master this before they start getting into the realm of actually doing magic.
Because it's important to get the grammar under your belt before you skip ahead to the rhetoric stage. You know, it's important to get that information and what it means, why it's important, how it works. Then you go out and start spreading knowledge and information. You don't take the action before you have the understanding. You can't understand until you have aggregated all of the necessary knowledge. And this is what I'm trying to explain most people are missing. They're missing the knowledge step. And then they're trying to claim understanding when there really isn't any. And then they're trying to actually act on a lack of accurate understanding and a lack of knowledge. And all you're ever going to do is create more chaos in that state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So we have to understand how natural law works if we're going to really get involved in doing the great work of higher magic. Because that's what the entire motivation of nature toward higher progression in consciousness is based upon. It's based upon fundamental laws of the cosmos, both physical and non-physical. So here comes what occultism is ultimately about. You know, this is what makes it different than any other science. Science, as we refer to it, is the study of the physical laws of nature. And they want to say, well, the laws of consciousness and the laws that govern morality and the consequences of free will behavioral choice, well, we're not even going to look into that, or we deny its existence. Okay? So they're not looking at the hidden laws of nature. Science wants to say there's only the seen world because matter is prime. This is a outdated Newtonian worldview of science that has been actually physically disproven for about 100 years. That's how long the ignorance of catching up to modern forms of new science are in the that's how much of a gap there is in the population. Like the Newtonian worldview of pure primacy of physical matter, disconnected from consciousness and interconnectivity of mind, has actually been disproven for approximately 100 years. And yet you still have people saying, I'm a scientific materialist and I believe in the primacy in matter and nothing else exists. Spirit doesn't exist, consciousness doesn't exist. These are meaningless terms. I hear this in the anarchist community, in the allegedly freedom-loving community, thinking they're going to make headway. And they know nothing about the world of the occult because they don't understand that there are unseen laws. They operate in the physical domain, but they don't originate in the physical domain. They originate in the domain of mind, of consciousness, of spirit, of will. And they propagate to the physical domain based upon our choices. This is what natural law is. So natural law is a set of non-man-made, immutable conditions that govern the consequences of free will behavioral choice of beings that have the capacity for holistic intelligence. So it means if we can understand what the difference between right and wrong are in nature, in the inherent natural world, meaning a right is an action that doesn't cause harm to another sentient being, and wrongdoings are behaviors which do cause harm to other sentient beings. If we have the capacity for that understanding, just having the capacity means that we are held to a higher account. We are held to a higher standard than the animal kingdom. So no one listening to my voice or any of the work that I've done should interpret or try to understand natural law as being the Darwinian order, the so-called natural order, the survival of the fittest, any of those things. Okay, if you're thinking that it's any of those things, or you are thinking that you learn about natural law by going out into the wilderness and observing how the animals act with each other, no, you don't. That's not what natural law is, as we're talking about. So let's get it right, and let's understand what we're really talking about. We are talking about laws that apply to beings with a central nervous system and brain structure as a human being or more advanced than a human being. Okay? It applies to us because we have the hardware to understand the difference between right and wrong. We can think at that perceptual and conceptual of a level. We have that kind of brain. Animals don't have that kind of brain, so these rules and laws do not apply to them, since they are purely instinctual creatures with some emotions in their makeup as beings. But emotions aren't as developed as us, although they feel, certainly, not denying that. They feel everything. They feel pain. They feel, comfort and care and etc. It's obviously proven. But they don't have the emotional complexity that a human being does, nor do they have the intellectual complexity. They don't have the capacity for holistic intelligence. Okay? And that means you have mind and heart-based intelligence. You can actually take in the knowledge of conscience, which is the difference between right and wrong behavior. Once you have the capacity for true conscience, because you have the hardware to understand why a behavior is a right and why a behavior is a wrong, then natural law applies to you. The universe instantly puts the stamp on the being. They have the hardware. They can understand it. These laws apply.
Okay.
Okay?
So, cosmic law, natural law, would you say that these laws are applicable to every being in the known universe, even beyond human? Because I talk to a lot of people, man, that are having interface with spirits. They're having interface with angels, demons, and archons, and all this kind of shit. As far as what's been revealed to me, these principles are eternal and are applicable to every known being in the universe. And if they are not in alignment with that, then they're actually in the position of being in domination and control. Otherwise, taking these things and then, of course, using them against humanity like the Dark Priest class does. Yeah. And the Dark Priest class are in the business of literally anchoring the consciousness of the spirits that they work with in this reality field. What I find in most magic circles is that they are negating their own eternal spirit and eternal essence, which is just as ancient, if not even more, because we're here on ground level actually trying to move things forward. You know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned, everything converges here in physicality. Getting into the Nordic tradition, Midgard is right at the
middle, the center, the heart. Yeah.
And so here is where everything goes down. All eyes are on the planet, so to speak, on a multidimensional level, because whatever happens here is going to have an effect on the rest of what
everywhere. That's right. That's why what happens here absolutely matters in the physical world, and no one should place spirit in a more important aspect than physicality.
It's both.
They're one and the same. I in my teaching, I understand them in my understanding, and I teach them as being one and the same, and do not place any more importance on one than the other. This is the spiritual domain. The physical domain is the spiritual domain, and vice versa. But this is where the spirit has to actually have interaction in physicality to learn and grow.
Okay, hold on.
This is a constructural realm.
You're cutting out again. Your voice is cutting out again.
Hold on. Let me try this again. Any better?
Yeah, there we go.
All right. I apologize. I'm gonna have to track down why that's happening.
It's okay.
So, we have to see that the spiritual and physical domains are ultimately one in the same, and we shouldn't place importance one over the other, because this is where spirit actually manifests to have experience and to learn and to grow. What happens here matters. It is very important what we choose and what happens here.
People that get into this science, they're still in that escapism, escape the matrix, when really I feel that we are here to master not only our physical lives, but come into alignment with cosmic law and what it entails. And then
we're going to learn how to change the result. That's the ultimate form of magic, is to get the result you want.
Sure.
When we learn how the laws work, then we're going to actually learn how to get the effect that we want, which is what this is what we say we want to do. We want to create a living condition, an environment that is harmonious to how we want to live. And the only way to do that is to align our behavior to natural law. There is no such thing anywhere in creation as an intelligent race of beings, meaning that they have the hardware to understand natural law, that lives in a state of moral relativism that is free. And this is what all of natural law boils down to. It all boils down to the law of freedom. Whether an entire society of beings anywhere in the universe is free or enslaved. And again, I want to qualify this. Yes, it applies to all intelligent beings in creation, beings with the capacity for holistic intelligence. Now, that being said, animals are also on an evolutionary path. So I believe at some point, maybe their thought form will evolve into something higher than the form that it is in now. And then natural law will apply to them. But I would say it doesn't apply to anything below the kingdom of creatures such as ourselves. It can be non-corporeal. It applies to any being that is capable of the level of thought. Below this, you're in the animal kingdom. Below a human being's level of complexity of thought, you're back into the animal kingdom. Most people live in that kingdom even though they're in a physical body, a physical human body. They're living in animal thoughts all the time. You know, it's like eat, reproduce, protect yourself, and get what you need. This is all base physical survival. Animals have that level of thought. Most people are at that level of thought. They're not really engaging human thought. What we're having a discussion about here involves human thought. You're not going to have a discussion like this with animals, but animals will understand eat, have sex, reproduce, shelter yourself from the elements. You don't need a conversation. They understand those things. And this is where most people are at, living at the level of animal. Okay, at animal instinctual behavior only. What we have to do is recognize we have to put our mindset into alignment with the understanding of the laws of morality, then align our behavior to it. Then we're going to see the outcome we want because there's one overarching natural law, a set of natural laws that govern human freedom. And here's how it goes. As the aggregate population, meaning the vast majority, the better portion of the population is becoming more moral and aligning their will to creation's will and to creation's laws, meaning they're not engaging in harmful behaviors, but they are and not condoning and supporting harmful behaviors that are being done in their midst and in their society.
Yeah.
Therefore, they are truly moral beings. The entire society is going to become more free. And as there are more in the aggregate number, the collective number, okay, of people who are behaving immorally and supporting immoral behavior and don't know or care about the difference between right and wrong and are therefore becoming more immoral, then that entire society is going to become more and more enslaved. So it's a very simple law of proportion.
Right.
Morality is directly proportional to freedom.
It's the pendulum swing.
That's it.
Right.
If you are becoming more moral as a society, you're becoming more free as a society. Morality and freedom are directly proportional. Okay? Immorality and slavery are directly proportional. As a society is becoming more immoral, it's becoming more enslaved. So, this is a scientific understanding that requires no belief that this law is in effect. You can historically look at any society on the earth and look at their aggregate morality and correlate it directly to their aggregate freedom. 100% of the time, flawlessly, in every time and location in the history of the world.
Right, and once you know cosmic law and actually study it and work with it, you can see it in effect all the time,
everywhere,
24/7. I know I do,
right?
And I'm picking up on all this kind of stuff going on in contexts like you go out and you're feeling all these energies. Like people don't even have to necessarily say anything. I can be in a room feeling the energy, okay, of the consciousness and the state of mind where people are because of my disposition. Not everybody has this quote unquote gift, so I have to spend a lot of time grounding in context to be able to differentiate, okay, what's me, what's not me, what am I picking up on, where's this coming from, you know what I'm saying? This is another topic I wanted to get into with you, the transformation of body consciousness on a multidimensional level in context to the art and science of alchemy. Because most people, like you're saying, they're on a base level of consciousness, right? But when you start to put yourself in alignment with truth, start going through the alchemical process, you get other abilities come, you get other extra sensory perceptions. And I think that a lot of people need to know what the fuck they're actually getting into in context to alchemy, because if you study alchemy and the first stages of alchemy, the calcination, going into the shadow, and burning away all these layers and all these things we're talking about.
Then putrefaction, dealing with all of that shadow material.
Yeah, there's that aspect of things, but then there's also the integration of higher consciousness. And I think at one point in ancient times that our kind were at the level even beyond the fucking sorcerers. Okay, the knowledge that's there within our codes, the things that have been kept from us, the real knowledge that they don't want us to access, is the knowledge that's there within us, within our system.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
It's not just like in books or grimoires. These are
like
memories.
I said, it's part of heart-based intelligence.
Right. In context to the ancestors, right? And the ancestors, as far as I'm concerned, they're awakening, man, and they have been awakening. They're trying to remind us. I did a segment with you and Jay Parker back in 2016 with Catherine Buckaloo, and it's still relevant.
Sure.
To a lot of things that do need to be addressed. But what would you say your experience has been in this, and the importance of the transformation of body consciousness on a multidimensional level is in order to go to the next level?
Right.
As mankind.
Well, as the body goes, the mind goes, and vice versa. They're inextricably interconnected. So bodily health, mental health, spiritual health, they're all one and the same. But there are many techniques that people can employ to go deeper into the realm of consciousness. You could do it through breathing techniques. You could do it with yogic techniques. You could do it with psychedelics. You could do, it could be, could get into hairier situations if you do it with psychedelics. You really have to know your tool set when it comes to that and understand what you're doing. But it can be done that way. It can be done again through something like martial arts or, yoga, meditation, EFT, etc. But the ultimate answer to this question is, how rich and complex is the inner world? It could go on and on and on and on, and it does. It's infinite. The answer is it's infinite. It's infinite richness and complexity. So the real answer is it's up to how deep someone really wants to go into who they are, into themselves. How serious do you want to get regarding really trying to be free and doing this work and changing yourself? Do you think? See, the first question you got to ask before you go into these levels and realms of initiation is, do you think everything's okay? Is it just good the way that it is? Are you comfortable the way that it is? Can you honestly look at the world and say, the world's fine? It's fine just the way that it is. I personally believe anybody that says that.
Fuck no, it's not fine.
Yeah.
It's not fine. And I've been east to west, north to south, man, and it's not fine.
Yeah.
It's not fine, and it hasn't been fine since I was a kid. See, I knew this
since before we were born. It's
that too.
Who knows if it's ever been fine since humanity has been here,
Right. Well,
think about how sick
we're dealing with, man. Everything that we're dealing with, this has been going on for the last 26,000 years.
Yeah. We didn't make it the way that it is, but we inherited it the way that it is.
Right, exactly. Because the Dark Ones still had jurisdiction. In 2017, the negotiations that have happened on higher levels and things that I'm doing on a multi-dimensional level, they don't have fucking jurisdiction here anymore. Just nobody knows it. That's why I'm in full support with you and what you are doing, as well as other people. It's a task that it takes a lot of courage, and I'm going to get rejected, and people are going to misunderstand me. But I just don't fucking care anymore.
All right.
I don't fucking care anymore. And
because what's the alternative? The alternative is slavery and the shutdown of consciousness.
That has been for eons.
Yeah.
Because we're in that feedback loop. The snake
continuing to do the same thing that has never worked, and that's the definition of insanity.
It is. And society and the world, as far as I'm concerned, knowing what I know, is fucking insane, man.
And part of the problem is the insanity is that people don't recognize yet clearly that the human condition, not only is it not okay, and they shouldn't be comfortable in it, but that the human condition is in fact slavery. Government is slavery. You know, that's the greeting. Hey, government is slavery. Just put it out there as a verbal meme to people, because they have to hear it. It has to be heard over and over and over and over and over again for it to sink in and for them to consider it and for them to understand it. And the problem is most people are content to have, you know, their little house, their car, you know, food and a bed. And if they have that, most of them aren't concerned with going into any deeper levels of awareness or consciousness or getting involved in a battle to try to make things right here, to take it out of a realm of violence and wrongdoing and things that people have no jurisdiction or right to do, and then turn it into a place where it's voluntary and it's based upon rights, not threats and violence, where behaviors and interactions between people are voluntary. This is ultimately what the great work is to do. If we get involved in the personal work of changing the absolute inner core aspects of ourselves and our own consciousness, that's going to be the work required to create the maximum beneficial positive outcome for all of humanity. And what that would look like would be a world that is voluntary, where behaviors between people are voluntary and not based in coercion and not based in violence, and not the idea of authority is no longer accepted as having any validity or legitimacy, a moral legitimacy at all. And the idea of government is seen for what it actually is: threats of violence. If you don't obey commands by a ruling class, it's a form of slavery. And people still haven't made that recognition because they're not at a high enough level of consciousness to even understand it as such. When we do that inner work and understand and reach that higher level of consciousness where we stop lying to ourselves, initiate ourselves into higher knowledge, and start to understand philosophical principles and natural law principles regarding rights, then we're going to be able as a species to consciously co-create the outcome that we say we want, and that outcome will be a world that has voluntary interaction and true freedom for all of its inhabitants.
Another thing I wanted to touch upon, man, was the ancient wisdom councils. Okay. This has come to me in memory, going through my own alchemical process. Literally a vision that I've been given. I don't know how the fuck it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to come together. I think in context, though, with a lot of things that we're talking about, this is that ancient wisdom that is going to be at the fucking forefront if we keep driving this, man.
Right.
The ancient shamanic wisdom councils, the Magi Grail shaman, at war with the sorcerers in context to the left wing and the right wing brotherhoods, caught in the same fucking paradigm that just keeps going. So it's awesome what you're saying about that third form of magic being in alignment, and everybody, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be given this opportunity, given at least a chance to consider it. Otherwise, they're going to deal with the consequences of cosmic law and everything that's happened. You know, it's going to fall upon them, I think, in a greater way, even after knowing the difference. Somebody that is completely fucking ignorant versus someone that was given the opportunity to look into it and then they just willfully ignore it. That individual is worse.
I agree.
Than the people that don't.
I agree. That's the worst place that I would ever want to be. And to ignore the responsibility to act and get involved on the spiritual battlefield to teach this and to alert people to what's going on by even just, you know, conversing about it on a day-to-day basis, to know and stay silent, man. I mean, that's the worst karmic place I'd ever want to be. Knowing and being in willful denial of what we need to be doing here, that's where we don't want to be. But see, what we're talking about here, what you're referring to as ancient wisdom councils, this is what we're already building. The internet is the tool that is making this interconnected level of consciousness possible. It doesn't have to be a physical place. It is a network of people that we are countering the networks of dark occultists by doing this very work, talking about these issues, bringing this out there, putting this on the table for other people's considerations. People say, well, there's a dark brotherhood. Well, where's the light brotherhood?
Right.
I'm like, congratulations. You've become aware of what's going on. You're it. You're in. Start teaching it. That's the light brotherhood. This is the network of people that are actually talking about this and exposing this darkness and evil. That's the light brotherhood. It may be scattered to the four winds of the earth, and there may be only a few people in every city that get it and understand it, but we're eventually going to propagate that. Once we have people who are really going to deeply teach natural law, occult science, okay, really get into how our reality is created, and the laws that really govern behavioral consequence. When we have more teachers of that, it's going to go in a rapid progression. We don't have enough yet, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. It's not enough people have made the decision to really learn this to the extent that they can then start teaching it to others. And that's been my appeal and is going to continue to be my appeal. I'm not after followers, folks. Look, occasionally, it's nice to hear you're doing a good job, a pat on the back, wonderful. I don't begrudge or fault people for wanting to thank me if they gained understanding from my work. But I'm not looking for praise, okay? I'm not looking to be liked. You don't have to like me, okay? I'm not looking for buddy, friend, chum, okay? I'm looking for other people who know what I'm trying to explain to the world enough that they could teach it. I am not looking for followers. I think that if you really help to convey an understanding to someone, the best way that they can repay you, and if they say that they've gained value in their lives from what you've taught them, is that they can pass it on to others. That's all I've ever wanted. I'm not looking to reach the everyday man and woman. I am looking to reach people who are already most of the way there in their understanding, give them some of the missing pieces, and then kick them in the ass to say, you need to start teaching this. I can't teach this to the whole world. No way. Most people are not going to receive this from me. It's like trying to put the energy of a lightning bolt into a tiny little flash drive. Do you know what's going to happen to that tiny little flash drive? It's going to explode in a billion pieces, okay? Right. I am under no illusion or delusion that the average everyday Joe Schmo on the street is going to be able to receive this knowledge from me, okay? Not going to happen. You're going to need to step this down through a transformer 100 times before it could even start to go into that everyday man or woman. Okay, I'm not that teacher. That's not who I am. See, try to understand what my personal work here is to do. Right. It's not to teach that totally unenlightened individual. I'm under no delusion that I'm capable of transforming them. Okay, first of all, they have to transform themselves, but I'm under no delusion that they're going to learn this from me. Okay, I'm looking for the teachers to build the real school throughout the earth, that then they might have the capabilities and the method to then go and teach the everyday man. Because my energy is nowhere near going to translate and intermesh with those everyday people. Right. Not going to happen. I'm operating on the level of where other people, when they can get this information, I'm trying to influence, encourage, and inspire them to go and start teaching it to the everyday person. That maybe if I said in other interviews, what if we had 3 million teachers of natural law worldwide? We'd be making some headway. Right. You know, I mean, I thought by now there might be 100,000. You know. Not only are we not even at 1,000, if we're at 100, I think we're doing really well. It would be a positive overestimate, okay? Mm-hmm. Like, we need over 1 million. I say we could probably do it worldwide if we had 30 million people who really understood natural law.
And natural law is just the beginning. And see, this is what I've done with the Blue Flame Healing Arts and occult science, man. I've been able to create this platform where people come to learn and remember who the fuck they are, right? And actually come into alignment with cosmic law and start to become the masters of their own thought and emotion. Because the dark ones know that it's all a state of mind. They know it's all a state of mind, and they stop people right.
Yep.
And then the second law of correspondence, as above, so below, the as within, as without, becomes triangulated. You're polarized, and then it's just all fucking unravels.
That's why if they can get people into solipsism, they got them before they begin. If they can get people into moral relativism, they got them before they begin. If they can get them into atheistic scientific materialism, they got them before they begin. These are all satanic constructs that are going to keep the world in slavery as long as people continue to think that way.
Right.
You can't build a world of freedom based on that thought structure. The sad part, Sethikus, is the dismissal of consciousness. This is like saying, I'm going to get these clothes to become dry because I want dry clothes to wear on my body, but I'm going to submerge them in this tank of water. It's beyond ultra madness is the only way that I could put it. You have to be the sickest, most insane, mentally ill person possible because you don't understand how the dynamic of wetness and dryness work. In the same way that you don't understand how the dynamic of morality and freedom work. That they are proportional. And if you have a morally relative society that believes man makes up right and wrong, you are never going to have a society that is behaving morally, truly morally in the aggregate. And therefore, they will never become free. Again, this is the retarded child holding his hand over the flame and saying, I don't want my flesh to burn. Oh, well, that's how the laws of reality work. And the problem is humanity believes it's the arbiter of truth and believes the cosmic laws of creation and behavioral consequence do not apply to them, or worse, don't exist at all.
Right.
Good luck, those who are in that mindset. You will be a slave forever. 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 There's no coming out of the condition of slavery while you are still in that mindset. So that's all I'm trying to explain to people. And yet I am under no delusion that me individually will get that through to human beings. That's why my appeal is get your ass on the playing field. Get up off the bench, okay? Stop second guessing yourself. Stop saying what if, because as long as you keep saying what if, you're in the slave mentality. And start teaching. Do your best, refine your teaching method as you go, okay? Okay, it's better to get your grammar under you and really know it before you start to teach it. But hey, if you know something well enough, start to convey it to others and then put them on to other people you may think explain it even better than yourself. Okay, but you gotta start actively engaging people, not saying things to people's face because you don't want to rock the boat or create an uncomfortable situation is not the answer. Here's what I said to the person I was speaking to last night. When I was saying, you're sick, you're mentally sick. You don't understand that you're mentally sick, but you're so imbalanced to the left brain that you can't see a simple truth that's right in front of you. You can't see the forest for the trees. You can't get the general idea because you're so focused on the little minute complexities and minutia that you cannot see the general philosophical idea and construct that's staring you right in the face. And this is why what we need to do is we need to engage people honestly and openly, and you could do it firmly, but still not be super confrontative. So I said to him, you have issues that you have to work out within yourself because you, first of all, have an erroneous worldview of physicality being supreme. I said, this probably came from your upbringing. You probably grew up in a utilitarian type culture or family or mindset, and obviously being a computer programmer is not helping because it's all left brain logical thought and branch functions of what if and this and that. It's all pure left brain thinking.
Right.
And then in addition to that, you've accepted the atheistic, scientific, materialist worldview of Newton that is disproven for 100 years, for a full century, that is not the accurate model of reality. It works in the macro domain for laws of mechanics and laws of, dynamics and motion, but that is not the underlying nature of reality is not the primacy of matter. And
Right.
that is a scientifically accepted truth in new science, in cutting edge sciences that have come forward in the last 100 years. So our work is to make it uncomfortable. See, what I did, I didn't accept the comfortableness of the situation as a pleasant conversation. I took it upon myself to look into his eyes and say, you have no heart-based intelligence at all. You have no spiritual-based intelligence. Whether you consider that valid or whether you consider that, something that has meaning to you is ultimately irrelevant. Whether you know you need that or not, you need it, okay? It's like if you want to pick up a weight, you're going to need your arms to pick up the weight. Okay, if you've amputated your arms and there are no arms there, you're not going to do a deadlift with your arms on a barbell. Not going to happen because you don't have the apparatus. Okay, this is a person who has, through whatever trauma, it was like I almost had to say, what the hell happened to you? What did you go through? This is what we have to say to each other. What in the hell kind of trauma or debasement or absolute stunted mental process or stunted mental and spiritual development did you go through to put you into this condition? Because man, you're standing here in the physical world looking like a normal, ordinary, healthy person, but when I put the spiritual, eyeglasses on and look at your whole spiritual field, it looks like you got run over by 10 tanks repeatedly, and then they backed up to finish the job. You're that messed up. We have to say it like that. Like, what happened to you? How did you get this messed up? You are messed up. It's not acceptable. It's not okay because you're being messed up absolutely affects other people's freedom when you're in this level of ignorance to truth. And we have to get involved in the process of helping these other people to heal through their traumas. Now, I can't do that individually, folks. That's not within my power. We have to form support communities to do this type of work. And we have to get involved. We have to identify the people who are some of the most, gone. And the other part of it is sometimes you got to let people be gone in their goneness. This is like a triage situation, kind of. When you're in a war hospital, there's triage that has to take place, and you got to say, is that person already gone? They may still be lingering and hanging on to life, but essentially,
right? Like, is there a point of no fucking return? And I think
there is. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And that's why here's the next part of it: conscious parenting. We have to work on the youth. Look at this millennial generation, how absolutely screwed up. The parents of the millennial generation are one of the biggest groups of abject failures of humanity has ever seen. They almost single-handedly destroyed the human race because the millennial generation is one of the most unconscious generations. Thank God the generation that is coming after the millennial generations has a little bit more common sense than this hipster millennial generation, because I'm telling you, their head is so far up their ass, they're probably never going to get it out. They're going to be like that till the day they die, most of them.
Yeah.
But after that, you got some younger people who aren't drinking the Kool-Aid anymore. They're recognizing, hey, look at the number that these social engineers did on the people who just came before us and our parents in the last generation. They're really fucked up.
Yeah,
hardcore.
And with that, we're having to make up for their shit on top of it.
Right. Right. I don't know what it was, man, but people in our general age group, the social engineers started really messing up, and something didn't quite go right in their actuarial supercomputer calculations. You know, maybe somebody programmed a little virus into the code somewhere. I don't know what happened, but I'm telling you, they didn't get a significant amount that they really needed to get in the age group, probably from somewhere around like 35 to 45 to 50 maybe, okay? But I'm telling you, that age group in there, they didn't get them all. But they tightened the clamp, man. They turned the screws on the clamp. After that, man, they locked it down. When they saw what the possibility of the takeoff of consciousness, they hardcore locked it down in the millennial generation. But again, maybe a little bit now, we're seeing a blowback to that. We're seeing some pushback. I'd like to think that that's happening on a small scale. We'll see where it goes.
Right.
But our work has
from my perspective, man, in context of what you're talking about,
Yes.
it goes back to the baby boomer generation, man.
Agreed.
Baby boomer generation, that generation, fucking gone.
Drop the ball.
And I'm a child growing up in the fucking 80s, looking at the fucking situation, knowing as a fucking child that this isn't fucking right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I've talked to other people about this. Like I just said, we're literally having to make up for the mistakes of previous generations, even going all the way back to ancient times.
Yep. Sure.
And touching upon this point real quick, getting back to our cosmic ancestral roots, not just physical, but cosmic roots, man, because you know how the Dark Ones operate. Cut a man off from his roots and then you have a slave. We don't know who we are.
As soon as you cut us off from our origins, we have no directional guidance. Ultimately, this is about understanding that this wisdom tradition and these teachings have been with us since time immemorial. They're not just ancient as far as humanity is concerned. They're ancient cosmically. They've been here as long as the universe has been here, which is eternally. That are never going away. Truth is eternal. It exists forever. It's never going away. It can never be destroyed. But humanity can be destroyed when we exist in a perpetual denial of truth.
Betraying the self.
The betrayal of our very essence of who we are.
Right. And then we turn and do it to one another. Right.
Yep. And that leads to a societal breakdown, societal chaos, and ultimately disorder, chaos, slavery, and death, which is the road we're on. Again, see, when I say that it's the scientific method, there's a science of natural law to understand how it operates, because we don't need belief. All you need to do is look at, is a society free or not? Is it going further toward freedom, or is it going further away from freedom? And then you can gauge the aggregate morality of that society based upon the result. One condition or cause always gives you one result. Okay, when you change the cause, you're going to change the ultimate created manifested condition, the result. So the effect invariably and unwaveringly follows the cause. And the cause is the society aligning their behavior with those laws of morality or not? That's the cause, and the effect is whether the society is free or not. This is the ancient root that we ultimately need to get back to. This is cosmic, universal law that is eternal. That's the essence of who we ultimately are. What we're really here to learn about ourselves, to the essence of the answer, who are we, is ultimately beings who have within ourselves the seed of true morality and goodness, or are we beings who truly have within ourselves and are going to grow the seed of ultimate evil and death? Both of those outcomes are potential, okay? What's going to manifest is based upon our free will choice of what we are going to choose to manifest. So, like I said, our work is to align our free will behavior with those natural laws. That's getting back to our cosmic ancestry, okay? Can that be done?
The fucking knowledge of the wisdom councils, man. Proper knowledge, because there's a difference between knowledge, exoteric, versus proper knowledge, esoteric.
Right.
Knowing how things actually work, and then wisdom.
That's right, because wisdom is right action.
Without wisdom, as far as I'm concerned,
meaningless.
Fucking useless, man.
Right. So the question becomes, Sethikus, How much of that knowledge is out there? Is it enough for people? Is already now in this moment there enough knowledge out there to take for people to take in and transform their mindset and therefore transform their behavior and align it with natural law? The knowledge is here. The ancient wisdom, the counsels that are already here, the people who are providing that counsel, right? The knowledge is provided. It's there. It's in existence. It is spoken. It is written. Okay. The question is, so therefore, can it be done? Well, you got to look at then, is the knowledge available? Can it be done to transform humanity like we're saying we need to transform? The answer is yes. And the reason is the knowledge is there. See, but there's a gigantic world of difference between can something be done and will it be done?
Right.
Will involves free will, personal choice, behavior. And whether we're going to align ourselves with personal responsibility and responsible free will choice to make moral decisions.
With that real quick, can you touch upon what the dragon is in alchemy?
The symbolism of the dragon represents many things, but the first and foremost of which is it represents knowledge and wisdom. How one is prerequisite upon another. Right action, okay, is always going to be hinged upon true knowledge. Okay, so the symbol of the dragon was always a symbol of knowledge. This is a symbol of the progression of knowledge, okay, and how it's almost like a serpentine roller coaster ride of sorts, okay, right. And it takes us into many different domains and places, and it's ancient, and it's absolutely powerful. What the potentiality of it is, it's fire breathing, it's hot, it's something that is dynamic energy, it's a ball of energy within our minds, our hands, our hearts, etc. So it's what we do with it that either converts it into something that is going to be destructive or something that is going to be a creative influence and put forward for the right reasons to affect the positive outcome. And that's wisdom. Wisdom is when you do the right thing with what you've come to know and understand. Just knowledge in and of itself, that's just the grammar, that's just the building blocks, you know. Then you got to process it and understand it. But wisdom means, what do you do with it? Are you going to use it for the right things and for the right reasons in life? Well, then if you do, then you've become wise. That's why we need wisdom, right. Wise dominion over our minds and our behaviors. Okay, our thoughts, our emotions, our actions.
That's when we truly become powerful. That's when we truly become the cause point, where you're not being influenced or affected upon with all the other fucking bullshit and context to the contrast.
That's the magus of the tarot, right. Ultimately. That's the self-mastery card. Sure, that takes it full circle, you know. It takes it full circle from what's really going on in the world, you know. It takes it through the manipulators, through the understanding that we have to develop as individuals to attain true mastery, you know. And when we get to that point, you know, all of the forces, the elements of the natural world will be arrayed at our table, as is shown in the Magus card of the tarot deck. You know, that's the world we want to see, where we have the ability to consciously direct the evolutionary flow that we will go down, the pathway that we will go down. That's conscious evolution, you know, in the aggregate, meaning that we are all consciously co-creating the shared reality that we are then going to experience, and it will be a maximum beneficial outcome for all based in voluntary behavior and freedom. That's possible. That's a possible outcome. Right now, we're not on that path. We have so much work to do to get on that path. My appeal, as always, gain more knowledge and then put it into effect in the right way as wisdom by teaching other people. So I mean, I think that's a perfect place to leave it and wrap it up for this session. My main website, ladies and gentlemen, is whatonearthishappening.com. There's a tremendous free body of knowledge up on that site for everybody to take in. I always recommend to go through the podcasts in order at your leisure, you know, in the time that you want to allot to it, but take them in order because it's a stepwise progression with prerequisite knowledge built at the beginning that you have to understand before you get to the later ones. Free videos, you know, there's a gift section on there If you feel that my work is valuable, feel free to donate so I can continue teaching this information and helping to inspire other people to teach it as well, because that's what's education is the ultimate long-term solution to the problems that we face as a species. So, Sethikus, thank you so much for inviting me on, and I really want to thank you for doing the work that you do to explore these ideas and to practically and in a pragmatic way put this work into effect in the world to try to help and heal people for the better and create that positive outcome that we all want. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Mark, I just want to say, first of all, it was a absolute honor having you come on to Black Earth Productions and sharing your wisdom with everybody, including myself. All of this for the purpose to taking things to the next fucking level. Now, I encourage all of you to go over to whatonearthishappening.com. Check out the archive podcasts. Mind-blowing fucking shit. I remember going through it back in the day. Also, if anyone is interested in the art port, all you got to do is get a terabyte, send it to Mark, and he's going to send back to you even more knowledge to be able to look into for yourself. Now, get on over to Mark Passio's YouTube channel. Check out all of the videos that he has presented on there. The protocol teaching that we need to be paying the fuck attention to. All of this is the launch of the One Great Work Network. Me and Mark Passio and other people that are involved decided that we are going to do whatever the fuck we can to start pulling this shit together in a way that's never been done before. Like I've been talking about, like the vision that I have been given. All directed by the higher force, as things are really starting to come the fuck together now. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. If you're serious about mentorship, if you're serious about getting into the occult, if you're serious about remembering who the fuck you are and what your destiny is, please check out our services page. I am taking all of this very, very seriously, with passion and fervor and the drive to keep going because of the importance of the hour that we are in right now as humanity. I encourage everybody out there to do the full pack initiation. And this is just the beginning. I got a lot more coming in the future in context to teaching that's being developed right now, being carved into the stone, so to speak, so that in the future you will be ready for what is coming. And just like Mark said, I don't want followers. I want to stand side by other fucking leaders that are going to do this with us. With all this, let's forge a fucking legacy for mankind and take things back to the original, like the dragons of wisdom of old. We are here again. We are speaking forth. It is time for the dragons of wisdom to awaken. It is time for the codes to be activated. It is time for you to remember who the fuck you are and what you came into this reality field to not only unfold, catching up with soul cycles, remembering all the things in context that we got into during this segment, but even further, what your destiny is as an individual, and then of course bringing it together in context to the wisdom councils. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts and Occult Science. I'll be talking to you more soon.